The story begins with a young boy taking countless blows, and his name is Lin Feng. The man hitting him calls him Lin Feng and says that soon he won't feel anything anymore. Beating Lin's body on the ground, he tells him to pass on now. Amid his laughter, he introduces himself as Ling Heng and says he will take Lin Feng's place as the young master of the Lin family. Now, a brief explanation of how things work in this martial arts-based world. They decide your destiny, as well as your life and death. In this world, respect is earned through martial arts. The weak are humiliated. The martial arts strength of the weak is equivalent to tens of thousands of pounds, capable of breaking rocks, while the strongest can cut rivers and split mountains. There are even martial arts kings who know everything and can travel across universes. Martial spirit, the innate talent of people on the continent, is considered the essence of martial arts. Nature spirits, such as fire, ice, hurricanes, lightning, etc. Weapon spirits, such as knives, spears, swords, halberds, etc. Animal spirits, like the white tiger, the mad rhinoceros, the violent monkey, and the dragon snake, etc. Of course, there are also powerful and unique martial spirits like the madness spirit and the immortal spirit. A martial artist's achievements are closely tied to their martial spirit. Lin Feng was a student who, due to an accident, had his soul travel and possess a body with the same name. In everyone's eyes, the young man with the same name was trash. Humiliated by his cousin, he was left half dead, which led to his body being possessed. Then, in Yangzhou City, at the Lin family mansion, the young student awoke in a different body. Wondering where he was, as he didn't recognize the place, and realizing he was supposed to have died in the accident, he noticed new memories emerging in his mind. He realized he had switched bodies with someone. As the memories flowed into his mind, he knew this body had been considered trash, but now he wouldn't let the past repeat itself. The two inhabiting that body would now become one, and in that world, the strong were respected. Power decides everything. To become a martial artist, one not only needed talent but also a strong heart and overwhelming determination. The young Lin Feng had been weak, but now things would be different. Having seen two different worlds and faced the test of death, he had become stronger than ever. Then he began to feel the martial spirit moving through his body. He realized it wasn't the spirit but the remnants of the original Lin Feng's soul piercing through his body. A dark aura surrounded his body, and he tried to understand what it was. He noticed Lin Feng's martial spirit, which was merely a small snake, and discovered why he had been treated as trash. He thought the dark aura surrounding him was a new martial spirit. He decided to call it the Dark Spirit for now, as it seemed to be a truly strong unique variant. This meant he now had two martial spirits. While putting on his clothes, he concluded that he was a twin spirit. After finishing dressing, he left his quarters. He was astonished by the grandeur of the place where his past self used to train. But before starting his training, he wanted to see if his abilities had improved with his dark spirit. He concentrated and unleashed his martial technique, 9 heavy waves. That technique had reached 7,000 pounds of force. He was no longer a complete waste. Someone approached where he was testing his skills and called him, "Son." Turning to the man, he realized it was his father, Lin Hai, who asked if his injuries had healed. He responded that he was fully recovered. The father was amazed that he had recovered from such severe injuries. He asked him to tell the truth about who had caused those injuries. The young man asked him to let him handle it alone and not to worry about it. While the father was astonished by his son's response, the young man thought that he seemed to have become a completely different person. He had changed for the better due to the incident, so it was a blessing in disguise. Lost in his thoughts, his father asked what had happened to the stone pillars. The young man replied that he had used some of his power after recovering and that he was a bit rusty. His father then thought he had reached the 7th stage of Qi, even though he had remained in the 5th stage for a long time. Looking at the young man, he was impressed by his progress and was certain he had an incredible son. Then, Lin Feng is summoned to a family meeting in the morning. They wanted the young man to witness how they would expel the family head. He is assured to remain calm, as his son will meet his expectations. His father tells him to go to bed early since his injuries have just healed, and he should rest. Some time later, while admiring the sky, he reflects that he once believed stories of gratitude and revenge only existed in novels. But now, he sees that they are real, and he can live in the world he always dreamed of. He thanks the Lin Feng of the past for the opportunity he now has, and he shouts to the heavens that, for all who despised him, he will repay them double and live an extraordinary life. The next day, at the Lin family battle stadium, people talk about how everyone wants to take the family head's position. There are also whispers that Lin Feng was defeated so brutally that he had to be carried home. The eldest uncle has always been unhappy with the family head, and today is the day he would choose the young lord. The Lin family will have a new leader after today. As Lin Feng arrives at the scene, a young man comments that he has a lot of nerve showing up and asks if he isn't afraid of being ridiculed. With an angry tone, Feng says that if he says one more thing, before finishing, his father interrupts him. He states that since his cousin Lin Yun lacks discipline, there's no reason to engage with him, and that he will silence them all once the meeting begins. His cousin laughs, telling him to retreat to his turtle shell. Inside the family meeting, the third uncle remarks that members of the Yunhai sect had visited them, which was supposed to be an honorable event, but it turned into a group of dead trash, bringing great disgrace to the Lin family. He then proposes expelling Lin Feng from the family, claiming he doesn't deserve to be a member. The family head slams his hand on the table, drawing the third uncle Lin Hao Ran's attention. He says he has no right to make unfair remarks and that he handles his family's issues. The family's eldest uncle, Lin Ba Dao, remarks that he shouldn't have said that. He argues that even as the family head, the third uncle is a clan leader and was acting for the clan's reputation. The second uncle then says that he's making those claims because he wants the family head position, and he knows it. The eldest uncle stamps his foot and proposes a duel. If he loses, he will take his son and leave the Lin family. It is agreed that if the family head wins, he will close his foul mouth. Face to face, Lin Ba Dao declares he isn't afraid of him. The people around comment that the great elder still sees himself as superior to everyone and that they should teach him a lesson. Then everyone is shocked and chilled by what they witness. It was the incredible power of the family head emanating from his body. The eldest uncle is terrified and shouts for him to wait, but Lin Hai ignores him and attacks with his magic, the 1,000-mile ice barrage. This completely freezes Lin Ba Dao's body. The great elder then shatters the magic, causing severe damage to Ba Dao. But he doesn't kill him, merely leaves him injured, and Ba Dao is in disbelief that Lin Hai could do such a thing. Everyone watching is amazed that he defeated the family's eldest uncle with just one strike. One of the family elders acknowledges that Hai had already cultivated the full extent of his ice ability, so it's no wonder he is so strong. As Lin Hai leaves the arena, he tells the elders to continue the clan meeting. An elder remarks there's no need to be so serious, as he has set a great example as the family head by improving his cultivation. This will motivate the Lin family disciples to train even harder, concluding that the clan meeting has fulfilled its purpose. The family head announces that he will leave first. As he continues walking, Hao Ran and his son block his way, saying they want to see how long he can protect his worthless son. Lin Hai responds that Hao should leash his son and asks what kind of father he is who can't teach his son good manners. Then Lin Feng appears, asking Hao's son how he would feel if he found out he was weaker than him. Smiling, the young man asks if Lin Feng's brain has stopped functioning. He goes on to say how someone like him could never compare to him. Feng then challenges him to a fight, and he quickly accepts, saying he isn't afraid of him. Lin Hao Ran tells his son to teach that trash a lesson. The young man says that if Lin Feng lands 3 hits, he'll win the fight. Lin Feng responds that if he lands even 1 hit, he'll win the fight. The spectators were shocked by Feng's words, wondering if he had a death wish. This made Hao's son furious, and he told Feng he would make him wish he wasn't alive today. Exuding his aura, Lin Feng tells him to stop talking nonsense. With the aura surrounding him, he announces that the fight will begin. The two stand face to face, emanating their power, preparing for combat. Feng begins attacking, using his 9 heavy waves technique. The young man is shocked, wondering why he is feeling such pressure emanating from Feng. The attack hits him squarely, knocking him to the ground and making him spit out a lot of strawberry juice from his mouth. All the spectators were amazed at Lin Feng's power, questioning if he was still the same trash master. Lin Yun couldn't accept it, saying Feng was supposed to be in the 5th layer of qi and asking how he could exert such strength. The young man asks Yun why he always called him trash, and yet, he couldn't withstand even a single blow from him. So where did that leave Yun? He continues, addressing the older uncle, saying that many times he called him trash, but his son is worse than him, which means he too is trash. Sitting on the ground, Yun says that Feng might be a bit stronger than him, but he has no right to flaunt his power because there are stronger people than him. Feng replies that he isn't flaunting, he merely returned the favor to him and his father, an eye for an eye, and pay back double. Turning his back, he concludes by saying that those who shame others will also be shamed. Leaving the arena, he calls his father to head home. Lin Hai was very proud of his son, who was finally growing up. He had not only improved his cultivation but also learned to speak philosophically, and over time, he would understand the talent he inherited from his mother. Sometime later, already at home, Hai asks his son why he couldn't cultivate at home and why he wanted to return to the sect. Feng responds that something simply cannot be avoided. If I stay home to train, there will be rumors about how my father is protecting me, and how could he become a strong martial artist that way? His father says that since he insists on returning to the sect, he won't stop him. Mounted on his horse, the young man promises to work hard and prove himself to all of them. Lin Hai says he believes in his son's potential and tells him to take care. Feng bids his father farewell and rides off on his horse. After 10 days of travel, he arrives at the sect. Right at the entrance, 2 men block his way, asking if he isn't ashamed to return. Feng replies that he wasn't expelled from the sect, so there's no reason he can't return, and he asks why they didn't stop the other guy. The man responds that the other guy is now an inner sect disciple and calls Feng trash, telling him not to compare himself. Feng thinks that a bunch of bullies only care about the weak. Activating his power, he says it seems they're ready to stop him. As he attacks the men, he tells them not to blame him for being harsh. Mounted on his horse, he says he's in a hurry and will let them off unharmed this time. But if there's a next time, I'll cripple your cultivation, he concludes, riding away on his horse. He then approaches one of the elders, introduces himself, and requests skill books. The elder tells him he can only access the first floor of the pavilion because he's in the 7th layer of Qi, and to find him after making his selection. Young Feng is astonished because the elder needed only one glance to see his cultivation level. He recalls a program he watched in his past life about disguises of great monks, and that monk defended the pavilion alone, so he must be very strong. He knows he'll need to train much more because there's always someone stronger than him. Arriving at the stellar pavilion, he is impressed by the number of books. He begins to read the titles of the books there, and some of the titles are: The Slicing Hurricane transforms wind into blades to attack, suitable for those with wind spirits. Raging Bull, a high-grade skill, is ideal for those with wild spirits. Typically, one should choose abilities based on the nature of their spirits, but with the unique variant, Feng was not restricted to any type. In this case, he only needed to choose a skill he liked, but it had to be not just strong, but also unique. The young man then saw the sword drawing ability. If the sword is drawn quickly and successfully, it results in a one-strike kill. He wonders why he had never heard of this technique before. That skill seemed different from the others because, if there were even a second's delay in drawing the sword, the attack would fail. A sword deals the most damage at the moment it is drawn, but if you miss, you fail. When you draw your sword, people die. When you sheath your sword, blood flows. Feng then chose that book to take with him, and now only needed to find one more martial skill to accompany it. Considering the speed needed when drawing his sword, and to enhance his agility to escape if the drawing failed, he went looking for an agility skill. One of the books caught his attention. Fleeting Shadow. Once trained to its highest level, you are as fast as light. Some may see you, but they won't see your shadow. The young protagonist then found the skill he was looking for. He then left the library, eager to begin training in his new techniques. When he reached the elder, the old man asked if he was certain about the techniques he wanted to learn. He also mentioned that he was the first person to take that book. The drawing skill is quite powerful, but if he failed, it could cost him his life. Feng thanked him for the advice but said he was determined. The elder thought to himself that Feng was very well prepared, as he chose 2 complementary skills. He told the young man that his eyes were very sharp and that he deserved great respect. Drawing his sword, the elder said he had used his sword as a belt, and instead of it being useless with him, he asked if the young man would accept it as a gift. Holding the sword in his hands, Feng thanked the elder for the gift. The elder said there was no need to thank him and told him to go train. Feng thanked him for his guidance and promised to take good care of the sword. The elder reflected that it had been a long time since he had seen such an interesting young man. He had unprecedented potential in training, and besides that, he was polite. There weren't many young people like him these days. 7 days passed, and the young man continued to train intensely. He was happy because his cultivation seemed to have increased greatly in that time. After several strikes on the mountain where he was training, he thought he should find a place to relax his muscles. He jumped from the top into the dense forest below. Analyzing the area around him, he wondered if this was the one-line sky canyon and went to check. He arrived at a spot where there was a crevice between the rocks and was certain he was in the right place. Walking further, he found a hot spring and understood why the place was so famous in the sect. He took off his clothes and entered the spring to relax. Reflecting on how he had been using his dark spirit lately, it seemed to enhance his understanding and accelerate his learning. But maintaining the dark spirit drained his energy significantly. It wasn't something he could continue using in real battles. He decided to hide the fact that he knew the drawing skill to keep the element of surprise, so he would only use his old technique. In the middle of his thoughts, something caught his attention. He didn't remember seeing anyone there before. Then a woman with pink hair was drying herself a little distance away. It would be rude to spy, and things were starting to get awkward. He stood up and hurried to leave to avoid any misunderstandings. The woman noticed someone's presence and asked who dared to spy on her while she was bathing. Feng apologized, saying he didn't know someone was there and was already leaving. The woman agreed but still attacked him with considerable power. The protagonist quickly noticed that the arrow carried 7,000 pounds of force and if he didn't dodge, he would likely die. He said it was just a misunderstanding and that she didn't need to be so cruel. The woman replied that a shameless peeping Tom like him deserved to die a meaningless death. She attacked the young man again with her bow and arrows. He repelled the attack, deflecting it into the spring. He noticed that the arrows had become even stronger, and that his 9 heavy waves technique could only alter their trajectories. The arrow that had been deflected toward the fountain returned in his direction. He recognized the woman as Lu Fei, the only artist in the 9th layer of the Yunhai Sect's outer circle, with a bow spirit. Her high-level spirit had the ability to track targets, so if he couldn't dodge, he would have to flee. Preparing his technique, he looked at the woman and said he would remember today's incident. The woman tried to stop him from fleeing, but in the blink of an eye, he escaped. She chased him through the gap between the rocks, but he disappeared from her sight. She reflected on how he had deflected her spirit with a sword and vanished so quickly, wondering if that was really his name. But it didn't matter who he was. If he dared to show his face again, she vowed to cut him into 1,000 pieces. A little further away, Feng was already sitting, thinking that was a close call. He reflected that she wanted to kill him just because she didn't agree with him and hadn't expected the legends about her temper to be true. He couldn't win against the 9th layer chi artist right now and was lucky to have escaped quickly. That world was truly cruel. If he didn't grow stronger, there was no way he would survive. The world he was part of respected the strong. Only the strong had the right to speak, choose, and live. The moment he used his sword-drawing technique, people would notice it, so he decided to save it as a last resort. While he was contemplating the use of his abilities, someone approached him. It was a young woman. Feng asked if she needed anything. She said she saw him resting there and wanted to ask if he had time. Her group was missing one person. The rest of the group arrived and explained that they wanted to go to the Black Wind Mountain range to hunt demonic beasts. They invited him to join, promising to divide the materials they obtained from the remains of the demonic beasts equally. Feng said it was a great opportunity to test the skills he had been training and agreed to go with them. One of the young men in the group questioned if he was the trash young master Lin Feng. The group was confused, and the young man warned them not to take him along unless they wanted him to abandon them. The protagonist replied that before calling someone trash, one should evaluate themselves first. The young man who had invited Lin Feng to the hunt tried to prevent them from fighting, urging them not to ruin the trip. He continued, explaining that Jing Feng was the strongest among them and, as such, could be a bit arrogant, asking Lin Feng to forgive him. The young man said it would be nice if Jing Feng were as reasonable as the others. The group began introducing themselves. The first was Jing Feng, an 8th layer chi artist and the strongest among them. The young woman was Jing Yun, his sister. Another was Qin Yi, who pointed to the burly man behind him. Before Qin could introduce him, the man introduced himself to Lin Feng, saying his name was Han Man. The protagonist introduced himself, saying he wasn't very strong but would do his best, and the others showed their support for him. They reached the crest of the Black Wind Mountain after crossing the range and headed toward their destination. After many battles with various creatures and defeating them with their powers, they continued searching for more demonic beasts. Qin commented that they were doing well and had already obtained 20 demon crystals. Jing Feng dismissed this, saying they were all low-level demon crystals and it was too soon to celebrate. Qin responded that at least they could get pills from those crystals and advised patience, as they wouldn't be able to handle a high-level demon. Han Man said there was nothing to fear since they had Jing Feng, an 8th layer chi artist, with them. Suddenly, the ground began to shake, catching the group's attention. Looking toward the forest, they saw the shadow of a giant approaching. It was an 8th level demonic beast, a violent ape, an elite level beast. Han asked Jing Feng for help, as those in the 7th layer wouldn't be able to harm it. Jing Feng said he hadn't yet seen Lin Feng fight. He asked if Lin Feng hadn't claimed he would do his best, suggesting they leave the giant ape to him. Qin interrupted, arguing that Jing Feng was sending him to his death and pointing out that Jing Feng was the only one capable of fighting the beast. But Lin Feng said he would fight the ape. Han Man and Qing offered to assist him in battling the beast. The protagonist then thanks them for their offers. He says that he is not acting based on emotions and is confident he can defeat the violent ape. He concludes by saying they can simply watch from the sidelines, facing the demon beast. He prepares himself to see if his training has paid off. He charges at the beast, suppressing its attacks. Jing Feng is impressed that he can subdue the violent ape. Qing shouts, warning him that the beast is about to attack. The young man responds that he needs to finish this quickly. He strikes the violent ape with all his power, causing it to collapse unconscious after his attack. Calmly, Lin Feng tells them to retrieve the demon crystal. Han Man is amazed by the sheer power he displayed. Qian says she didn't expect him to use the 9 heavy waves technique at its deepest level. It seems that as long as we don't encounter a 9th level demon beast, we can do whatever we want, said the muscular one. Jing angrily comments that it was too easy for him and says he just got lucky, so there's no reason to be proud. The others say he should acknowledge that Lin is truly strong and shouldn't have called him trash. The protagonist remarks that maybe the ape didn't live up to its reputation, But that doesn't matter, and he tells them to continue exploring. They all notice a different presence nearby. Jing, facing away, asks why everyone is acting so strangely. It was a 9th-level demon beast, the Infernal Wolf. It comes and goes without a trace and particularly enjoys torturing people. Shouting, he tells them to cover his back while he figures something out. Jing charges toward the beast. He asks why they are retreating, and Lin replies that he's the one who told them to back off. You want us to charge forward when you know our cultivation levels aren't enough to fight the wolf? Do you want to use us as bait so you can escape? Lin asks, continuing, if I killed an ape 1 level higher, don't you think I can kill the wolf? This enrages Jing, who unleashes his spirit, declaring they'll see just how terrifying his 8th sword spirit is. He attacks with his power, the Roaring Thunder Sword, but the wolf, being very fast, dodges the attack. He launches another strike with his sword, but the wolf firmly grips it, locking him in a contest of strength. He tries to slash the wolf again, but it dodges once more, and this time, with its eyes blazing, it counters, hitting Jing squarely. Qian is terrified, realizing that even Jing can't fight the wolf, and Lin asks what the Infernal Wolf's weakness is. He recalls the beast's guide. Infernal wolves have extremely strong attacks, are fast, and their neck area is weaker, which they always try to protect. He shouts, asking Lin what he plans to do. Drawing his sword, Lin says he will see which is faster, his sword or the wolf's claws. Swiftly, he charges at the wolf and slashes its neck in the blink of an eye. The beast crashes to the ground, defeated. Han wonders how such a feat was possible. Everyone is astonished at how quickly he defeated the wolf, even without using a martial spirit. The young man comments that the wolf doesn't seem as big a deal as expected. After all, Qian asks if he has a sword martial spirit. He replies that he doesn't. It's just a skill related to swordsmanship. Han hands him the demon crystal, saying that since he defeated the wolf, the crystal is his alone. He refuses, saying they should divide it equally, as they had agreed earlier. Lin tells them to wait a moment, and not to forget about him. He demands they ensure his safety and give him half of the crystals. Otherwise, he will kill them. And he reminds them that his brother knows he came with them to the Black Wind Ridge. Qian remarks that his brother is the 6th-ranked outer disciple of the sect, someone at the peak of the 9th layer. If that's the case, they'll comply. Now lift me up, and you better treat me well. If anything happens to me, my brother will torture you, said Jing. Our hero then asks what the problem with that is, adding that he never offended Jing, but Jing wanted to use beasts to kill the entire group and take the crystals for himself. He says he endured all of it only because they're sect disciples and believed Jing would apologize, but it turns out Jing is just scum. I don't care who his older brother is, he concludes, drawing his sword. Jing is startled and asks what Feng is doing. He says he no longer wants the crystals and promises to do anything if saved, begging to be let off the hook. The group members, frightened, plead with Lin Feng to let him go. Feng asks how they can trust such a bad person. If they save him today, he will definitely betray those who help him. He then playfully pokes Jing Feng with his sword. Everyone is shocked by what he just did. Putting his sword away, Feng declares that he will take full responsibility for what happened and doesn't care about Jing's brother. Han Man says he's not a coward and won't let Lin Feng take the blame alone, adding that he has always hated Jing Feng. Qian also steps up, saying he will share the responsibility, and Jing Yun agrees to take the fall as well. Lin Feng feels grateful to have found true friends, making the journey worthwhile. He thanks them for their concern and says it is an honor to be friends with them, but warns that things will only get more dangerous from here on. The group agrees with him and mentions that now they can buy not only enhancement pills but also some equipment. As Feng looks at Jing's fallen body, he reflects that arrogant and rude people like him have no right to be martial artists. Then he notices a book in Jing's pocket. He takes the book, which turns out to be about the thunderous sword technique. Lin Feng hadn't expected Jing to carry such a secret skill book with him, but now it was his. The thunderous sword technique, in addition to its drawing ability, allows for powerful attacks and serves as a last resort killing move. Arriving at the village, Qian asks Feng what he plans to do next. Feng replies that now that he has pills, he intends to continue training. Qian then asks if Feng wants to speed up his cultivation rate. If so, he recommends going to the Stormy Canyon, a gathering place for fighters, saying it would suit someone as strong as Feng. Han Man adds that he also planned to cultivate in the Stormy Canyon, and Qian agrees it's a good idea given Feng's skills. The burly man tells Feng that, if fate allows, they'll meet again there. The hero suggests that if they have time, they should gather occasionally. Everyone says their goodbyes and heads off in different directions. Feng reflects on how the Stormy Canyon brings back painful memories. He is no longer the weak Lin Feng of the past. He is determined to reclaim everything he left behind. The regret and shame that once haunted him will be erased. After a few days of intense training, he notes how effective the pills are, improving his strength quickly even without using his dark spirit. Suddenly, someone yells, asking if he really has the nerve to return. A man approaches him, saying he thought Feng had gone too far but realized Feng was harder to kill than expected. "It seems I'll need to truly finish you this time. Trash like you has no right to inherit the position of young master of the Lin family." Feng retorts that the man talks too much and asks if he knows what happened to Lin Yun in the end. The man raises his voice, demanding how Feng dares to mention his brother and accusing him of not paying for what he did at the clan meeting. Lin Feng rises and says they should settle both old and new grudges. But if the man is willing to apologize, Feng will let him go unharmed. The man becomes furious, mocking Feng for thinking he would ever apologize. He lunges at Feng, attacking while calling him trash. He lands a punch on Feng's face. Feng asks if that's all he's got. Grabbing the man's hand, Feng says that not only does he talk like his younger brother, but he is just as stupid and incompetent, and Feng will make sure to repay everything done to him. He begins concentrating his power to strike. The man raises his arms in front of his face in an attempt to defend himself. Feng taunts him, asking if he can't take it, and declares this is just the beginning. He prepares an incredible technique, announcing, "This is the main event." He unleashes the thunderous sword technique on the man. The man falls to his knees with strawberry juice dripping from his mouth. Feng remarks that he held back some of his power. The man looks desperate. He begs for forgiveness, admitting it's all his fault and promising to do anything the young master desires. Our protagonist asks if he spared him when he begged for mercy. The desperate man says he deserves to die because he is a damned bastard, but seeing that they are cousins, he pleads for Feng to spare his life. Turning away, the young man says it's fine, since they are from the same Lin family, so he will let him live. But to prevent him from committing more crimes, he will incapacitate him, and he strikes the man at key points. Then he tells him never to show his face in front of him again. Lin Heng, lying on the ground, shouts that he has paralyzed his cultivation. Screaming to the heavens, he vows to make Feng's life a living hell. As he walks back to the sect, reflecting that he went easy on Heng this time due to the clan's rules, but he won't give another chance. Suddenly an attack comes his way, and he manages to dodge it. He wonders who launched that attack at him. It was Lu Fei, saying she won't let him escape like last time, but this time he won't get another chance. She then prepares 3 arrows to shoot at him, thinking that the world they live in is small and his cultivation wasn't enough last time. But in his current state, he won't even need to dodge. He charges toward her. This shocks the girl, as he is moving toward the arrows as well. Feng dodges the arrows and asks if that's all she's got. Continuing rapidly toward her, he says that she should be the one worried. A spell then falls from the sky, stopping Feng's advance. He asks who is there, and the response comes with a question. Is he trying to hurt Lu Fei, and is he tired of living? It was Yu Hao, a Sect disciple at the soul layer cultivation level, who continues asking if she wants him to finish it. Feng then wonders if he is an inner Sect disciple. The young Fei says this is a personal matter, and that he shouldn't have intervened. She tells Feng they will settle their issues later. That's it for today. He asks if she's running away because she can't defeat him. She says he shouldn't be so arrogant and that he would die if he faced Yu Hao, and she doesn't want him to interfere. He replies that she should remember that their matter is not over yet. Turning to leave, Yu asks if he's leaving already. He continues, saying that she may let him go, but that doesn't mean he will. Lu Fei tries to stop Yu Hao from doing anything, but he launches his attack at the young man. Feng asks why he seeks to kill him if they hold no grudges against each other. Dodging the attack quickly, he says that the day he reaches the soul layer will be the day of Yu Hao's funeral. Yu asks if he really thinks he can reach the soul layer. The woman is impressed by how quickly he dodged and wonders just how strong he really is. Leaving the scene, Feng reflects that although he is confident in his speed, he cannot yet match someone at the soul layer. He needs to at least reach the 9th Chi layer, and his one-hit kill technique might then compete with the soul layer. While walking and thinking, someone calls out to him. He is happy to see that it is Han Man and Jing Yun. They greet each other, saying it's been a long time since they last met. Feng says it's quite a coincidence, and asks where they're headed, and Han says they came looking for him. He asks why they were looking for him and remembers Han saying he wanted to train in the Tempestuous Gorge. Embarrassed, Han says the gorge has many strong fighters, and he's worried his level is too low, so he wanted Feng to join them. He asks Feng not to laugh at the request and says that, although he's not very brave, he has thick skin and is very resilient in a fight. Jing Yun says that if brother Lin Feng joins them, they won't have to worry about being selected. The protagonist agrees and says he will join them to train together. Han is delighted by his decision. He hands Feng a mask he had prepared earlier. Feng questions why the mask, and Han explains that it's to avoid trouble. Fighting each other always leads to someone losing, which breeds grudges. So it's better to hide our identities from others, he concludes. Feng then remembers that, in the world they now live in, people don't care about others, they're like wild animals. They set off toward the gorge, all feeling very confident. The Stormy Canyon is the largest training area in the Yunhai sect. Cultivators often come here to train, The cultivation levels are ranked from lowest to highest: Chi layer for beginners, Soul for intermediates, and Profound for experts. Everyone strives hard to improve their cultivation, but some resort to dirty tricks to win or even kill. For this reason, the Stormy Canyon is a much scarier place than the Black Wind Crest. Someone appears in front of the three. He says it's a pleasure to meet them and asks if they're interested in a match. Han says he didn't expect to find an opponent so quickly, while Feng warns him to be cautious because this person is strong. The big guy replies that it would be an honor to compete against a stronger opponent. The challenger then quickly charges at Han. Han blocks the punch with both hands, but even so, he's thrown backward. He wonders why he can't stop the attack. The young man in the blue mask asks if Han is in the 8th layer, and says he is in the 9th. He warns that if Han doesn't get serious, he will lose miserably. Han then rips his shirt, while letting out a shout. He acknowledges that his opponent is right and declares that he'll now go all out, releasing his martial spirit. The young man comments that Han's earth spirit is quite rare. He adds that he will also use his martial spirit, activating it. They then exchange blows with each other. After several strikes, they create some distance between them. Han remarks that this level of skill is to be expected from someone in the 9th Chi layer. His opponent replies that Han is acting tough despite having suffered internal injuries and calls him a hell of a man. Exuding his power, Han warns him not to underestimate him. Han unleashes the Mountain Lion's Roar technique against his opponent. The opponent channels power into his fist and dismisses the move, saying it's just a name without substance. He charges forward, punching through Han's technique. Smiling, Han admits that even his full-force attack couldn't stop his opponent's advance, conceding defeat. The man in the blue mask acknowledges Han's skill. He notes that Han managed to injure him, despite his flawless attack, and that there seems to be more to Han than brute strength. Turning his back to Han, he concludes by saying that next time, he won't be so merciful. He bids farewell and leaves. Han is left deep in thought, wondering how he managed to injure his opponent, since he was only blocking naturally and had no intention to attack. He realizes that if he had pushed his fists forward, his hands would have been broken, and he had unintentionally saved himself. Feng asks Han how it went and about his injuries. Looking at Han, who is meditating, Feng asks if he has reached enlightenment. Han remains silent, sitting still and focused. Jing Hao asks Feng what Han is doing. Feng responds that it seems Han has achieved enlightenment, and advises them not to disturb him. For cultivators, reaching enlightenment is a crucial step. After enlightenment, the quality of one's cultivation improves dramatically. One must never be interrupted during the meditation process, as failure could result in severe internal injuries. Feng reflects that many people dream of achieving enlightenment, and can't believe that Han Man reached it before him. The purpose of returning to the canyon was not only to boost Han's courage, but also to ensure they all learned something new. Feng's thoughts are interrupted by something. He asks who's there. Suddenly, an attack is launched at Han, who is meditating. The attack hits Han directly, snapping him out of his meditation. Startled, Han demands to know who did it. Feng, furious, asks how the man dares to harm his friend with such dirty tactics. The man, with a smile on his face, asks if they don't know that such things are not forbidden here. Feng retorts that it doesn't matter and vows to make him pay for his actions. Han tells Feng to let him handle the man who attacked him. The man challenges Han, asking if he has the guts to fight in the arena of life and death. Angrily, Han agrees, saying they will fight there because he isn't afraid of someone so despicable. Feng offers to help, but Han thanks him for his kindness and insists on defeating the man with his own hands. He asks Feng to avenge him if he dies. They head to the life and death arena in the center of the Stormy Canyon. Many people are already gathered around the arena, watching the ongoing battles. The man declares that once they step onto the stage, their life and death will be decided by fate, and he won't hold back. Han warns the man to be very careful and steps into the arena. The two stand face to face, emanating their martial spirits. The man tells him to make sure to remember his words before dying. "The one who's going to die is you," Han says with great determination. The man charges at him, saying to remember that the only one who will take his life is Jiang Huai. Han wonders how he knows his name. He attacks with the howling flame palm. Han, shouting, says he will defeat him, and strikes with the mountain-splitting fist. The two attacks collide, each blocking the other. The man is impressed by Han's strength. He throws something toward Han's face. It's a handful of sand that ends up getting in the big guy's eyes. While Han struggles to open his eyes, the man takes the opportunity to get behind him, and strikes his back with the howling flame palm. Han falls to the ground, coughing, and the man asks if he can't take any more. Everyone watching around the arena is shocked by what they see. The man prepares for another attack on Han. Han howls in desperate pain. Laughing, the man asks if he can feel his fireball. From outside the arena, Feng shouts for him to stop right now. A man steps in front of Feng and tells him to stop, explaining that now that they've entered the arena of life and death, it doesn't end until one of them dies. Feng asks who he is. Jingyan says it's Jing Hao, which catches the young man's attention. The man tells him not to even think about helping, to just stay there and watch, or else he will kill him. Our hero asks, "You and what army will do that?" Then he disappears from Jing Hao's sight in an instant. When Han's opponent goes for the final blow, Feng enters the arena and grabs his hand, stopping the attack. He tells the man to stop. The man, furious, tells Feng to mind his own business. He adds that Han man is the one Jing Hao wanted him to kill and asks why Feng is interfering. Feng says he now understands why he wanted Han dead, letting go of the man's arm and pushing him back. He turns to Jing Hao and asks if he wants to avenge his little brother. "I'm the one who killed him. It has nothing to do with Han or the others. If you want revenge, come after me. There's no reason to plot against my friends," Feng says. Jing Hao replies that it's no surprise and that he found it strange Han could defeat his brother, and that Feng doesn't seem afraid to reveal himself like that. He tells Jiang Huai to give up, which confuses Han's opponent, who asks if they will let Feng act like this. Huai responds defiantly that, of course, they won't, they will avenge his brother. Feng helps Han to his feet and escorts him out of the arena, telling him to relax and focus on recovering, and to leave the rest to him. Han thanks him. Huai then says he's changed his mind and that there's no reason to stop, as they are in the arena of life and death. He attacks the two from behind with the Flame Spirit secret technique, saying sooner or later they will die. Feng notices the attack and says Huai is pushing his luck. He dodges the spell in the blink of an eye. Huai looks for them but can't find them. Suddenly, an attack hits him directly. He asks who attacked him with the Thunderclap sword technique. Feng appears behind him, confirming his name. He says Huai acts so arrogantly while being nothing more than Jing Hao's lapdog and that he will kill him before dealing with Jing. Activating his spirit, Huai asks how Feng could possibly defeat him. He attacks using the infinite fireball technique. A huge cloud of smoke forms, concealing Feng within it. When he reappears, he's smiling and asks if that's all Huai's got. This shocks his opponent. The people around comment that they didn't expect such strength from Feng, but even so, he's no match for Jing Hao. Clearing the smoke around him, Feng says it's time to send Huai to hell. Jing Hao says not to forget that Huai is one of his men. Facing Feng, Jing Hao asks what the problem is, and if he really wants to protect that despicable man. Feng then asks why he thinks he has to protect Huai. Jing Hao replies that before Feng attacks one of his men, he needs to ask for his permission, and he begins to activate his martial spirit. Our hero says he doesn't need Jing Hao's permission and that he will kill Jiang Huai today. The two launch their attacks at each other, colliding midair. Hao declares that the Thunderous Sword technique is a secret family skill passed down in the Jing family. He says a bastard like Feng isn't fit to use it. The protagonist deflects the attacks and replies that as long as he's strong enough, he can use whatever he wants. He then unleashes the Thunderous Sword technique, Thunder Fangs. The technique slices Hao's attack in half. Hao is impressed that Feng can wield the thunder element at such a level. The spectators comment on how Feng suppressed Hao's attack and note how much stronger he's becoming. Feng declares that the game is over. He begins preparing his next attack, pointing his sword at Huai. Hao yells at him to stop and asks if he intends to torture Huai to death. Feng responds that Huai's brother said the same thing to him. Meanwhile, Huai screams desperately for Hao to save him. The protagonist doesn't care and strikes Huai with all his might. Hao is furious, activating his martial spirit, and asking Feng if he will show no respect. The death of Jiang Huai isn't enough to atone for your crimes. Don't worry, you're next. Today, you'll experience the strength of the 6th-ranked external disciple of the Yunhai Sect, Hao declares, exuding his power. But the young Feng remains undeterred, exuding his own power and calling the brothers two sides of the same coin. Hao begins his attack using the Thunderous Sword technique. 10,000 swords return to the sect. He yells that he'll silence Feng very soon. Launching the attack toward Feng, Hao shouts for him to die. Feng observes the incoming attack and remarks that it looks strong but wonders if it can match his speed. He swiftly dodges all the attacks. In the blink of an eye, he appears in front of Hao, startling him. Feng grabs Hao by the head and slams him into the ground. He then mocks Hao, saying he can't withstand a single blow. Is this the strength of a 6th-ranked external disciple? You must be joking, Feng remarks. Hao sits up and asks why Feng is so proud, claiming that Feng only tickled him. He insists he can't believe his brother lost to trash. Angered, Feng declares that he hadn't even used half his strength and will now show the difference between him and Hao's brother. He unleashes the Thunderous Sword technique, Sky Thunder Sword. Hao becomes desperate, questioning how Feng learned the ultimate move of the Thunderous Sword technique. The protagonist simply commands the sword to strike, hitting Hao directly. Hao screams in despair as the attack lands squarely on him. Not bad. It seems the Thunderous Sword technique isn't enough to finish you off, Feng remarks. Grinding his teeth, Hao accuses Feng of only using stolen techniques and insists that someone like him could never win. That's enough. I hate it when someone uses the word trash, Feng retorts. Kneeling, Hao screams that Feng must have tricked his brother to win and stolen his family's skill book. He repeatedly calls Feng trash, knowing it irritates him. Having had enough, Feng prepares his final attack. Hao tries to maintain his tough facade, asking if Feng thinks he's capable of touching him. Feng slashes at him with his sword, severing Hao's head from his body. After the strike, Feng maintains a cold, serious expression, as if accustomed to such situations. The crowd around them falls silent, stunned by what they just witnessed. Looking at Hao's severed head on the ground, Feng declares that he was a shameless disciple. "And now you can regret it in hell," he says. The audience begins to murmur, marveling at how incredible the fight was and how strong the masked young man is. Everyone seems pleased to have witnessed such a remarkable battle. The elder who welcomed Feng back to the sect observes from afar, thinking about how fast he's grown. Meanwhile, still on the arena platform, Feng wonders where Han Man is and how he's doing. In the blink of an eye, Feng disappears from the arena to search for his friend. The elder watches proudly, noting that Feng has reached the pinnacle of the skills he's been learning. Arriving at the quarters of the external sect disciples, the protagonist rushes around, looking for his friend. He finds Jingyun sitting beside Han Man's bed. The girl has a very sad expression. Feng quickly runs to wake Han and confirm that he's okay. Han calmly replies that he's fine and asks if Feng defeated the enemies. The young man, smiling, says he defeated them. He had taken care of them, but Han needed to improve. He couldn't just keep going like this. The big guy admitted he was scared, and said he couldn't promise he would be okay. This left our hero shocked. Jingyun explained that Han Man had been attacked while meditating for enlightenment, and Feng replied that he remembered, but it couldn't be that bad. She continued, saying that many doctors had said the injuries were too severe to heal. Crying, she revealed that Han Man only had a few days left. The protagonist blamed himself for everything. The other two were astonished by his words. In his thoughts, he held himself responsible for not uncovering Jiang Huai's scheme sooner, and considered that in such a large sect, someone should be able to heal the wounds. Determined, he resolved to go to the Abyss Cliff, stating that everything happened because of him, so he had to save Han Man. Otherwise, he would live with the guilt. Jing, scared, said that no one had ever returned from the Abyss Cliff. Standing at the door, he said he would only know if he tried. He asked the big guy if he believed Feng could pass the trial. Han replied that since the day they met, Feng had always achieved the impossible, so he believed in everything Feng could do. That made Feng happy. It was just what he needed to hear. Leaving confidently, he told them to wait for his return. The Abyss Cliff, the most mysterious and dangerous place in the Yunhai sect. Rumor had it that if one passed the Abyss trial, the sect would grant them any wish. Many had come here, but none had survived. Feng arrived there, full of determination. At the gate, he introduced himself and said he wanted to take the trial. The passage began to open slowly. A voice said it would guide him to the trial. He was thoughtful, as he had believed the test would begin right there, and he needed to act fast. He entered the large, dark pathway. The door closed behind him, and he realized he hadn't known about the massive stone cavern inside. He followed the path, dimly lit by a few candles. He felt a strong chi suppressing the area, suggesting a master resided there. At the end of the corridor, he spotted a room and wondered if the voice that had guided him belonged to someone inside. Entering, someone recognized him and was surprised to see him there. An elder said it would be nice to greet him, but he would die if he went further. The elder continued, saying Feng was just an outer disciple, still too young, and it was too early for him. The young man thanked the elder for his advice but said he had little to lose. His friend was gravely injured, and passing the trial was the only way to help him. The elder was surprised that Feng had come not for selfish reasons, acknowledging that his intentions were noble, but the sect had rules. He promised to save Feng's friend if he passed the trial. However, he warned that Feng might not survive and asked if he was certain about taking the risk. Feng said he understood all the risks, but Han Man was his best friend and had been hurt because of him. What kind of man would he be if he couldn't save his friend? The elder understood his reasons, saying Feng was a good young man who valued friendship, but it was unfortunate he had to take the trial. Then something caught the elder's attention. He recognized the sword Feng carried. It belonged to another elder, Bei Lao. The elder remarked that since Feng had made his decision, he would respect it, explaining that the path to the trial was through a passage that had just opened nearby. A staircase appeared, illuminated by a blue light. The elder explained that the location of Feng's trial was at the end of the path, and wished him success. Feng thanked the elder for guiding him and bid him farewell. As he climbed the stairs, the elder thought to himself that, since Bei Lao had trusted him, he would also give him a chance. At the top of the stairs, a door emanated light, illuminating the staircase. Feng quickly approached the door. Inside, he saw several bells surrounding a circular platform with various colorful lights. He was amazed, as the place looked like a fairyland. Above the door he had entered a plaque read, "Wall bells." He surmised that he needed to strike the bells, but it likely wouldn't be so simple. He prepared to attempt the trial. Launching his first attempt, he struck the bells with his ability, but the attack was reflected by all of them. Confused, he tried to understand what had happened. His attack rebounded toward him. He dodged it, noticing that the attack was now stronger than before. Previously, Feng had only used 8,000 pounds of force, but now it was over 10,000 pounds. He wondered why the bells reflected his attacks, and whether it was due to a lack of power. Deciding to test the bells with his martial spirit, he exhaled his energy around his body. He concentrated his power to the maximum, and launched a magical sword at each of the bells. When the sword struck, all the attacks were absorbed by the bells. He questioned how the attacks seemed to melt into the bells. To his shock, the attacks began to emerge from the bells, moving slowly. The bells had absorbed the martial spirit, and amplified it several times over. Quickly, the attacks were launched back at Feng, who dodged them again. Now he faced a problem. He didn't understand the properties of the bells. It seemed he would need to summon his dark spirit, and go all out. Meanwhile, at the stormy canyon, he was surrounded by people discussing past fights. The elder was there too, attracting much attention from the crowd. Beside him stood some famous figures from the Yunhai sect. Qinxing had joined the sect by defeating a disciple and became a soul layer artist just days later. Among them were the sect's strongest disciple, Ling Huishan, and the elite inner disciple, Tu Fu, rumored to be even stronger than the elder. Elder Moxie of the Yunhai sect, observing a bird, remarked that its arrival was extravagant. The bird carried 2 people, but as it landed, it vanished. The passengers were the young lord of the Haoyu sect, Chu Zhanping, and Lin Xian, the daughter of Lin Ba Dao. Their arrival caused a commotion among the audience. Smiling, the elder commented that the great officer Peng lived up to his reputation. He added that Peng had come promptly after receiving his letter and apologized for not accompanying him. The young Chu Zhanping humbly remarked that he wasn't as powerful as the rumors suggested. He continued, saying they came because his sister needed a worthy opponent to train with. He expressed his desire to witness the graceful martial arts of the Yunhai sect, and his sister requested they grant her wish. The elder suspected they were there to cause trouble. However, he couldn't refuse them outright, nor could he send an elite disciple, as that would reveal the sect's strength. He called for Qinxing, who eagerly stepped forward. The elder announced that Qin would train with Lin Xian on behalf of the Yunhai sect. The crowd was thrilled to see the two step into the arena. Qin prepared for the battle, advising her to dodge his attacks if she couldn't block them. Releasing his martial spirit, he assured her he wouldn't hold back just because she was a woman. Lin Xian agreed and said she'd teach him how to treat beautiful girls. The elder silently prayed that Qin wouldn't disgrace the sect. Meanwhile, Lin Xian's brother knew that Chen's stone spirit couldn't match his sister. Chen Xing charged at Lin Xian with everything he had. She mocked him, saying a big man like him should learn to be gentler. "You shouldn't treat girls with brute force, so I'll cool you down a bit," she quipped. She used her ice spirit to block and counter his attacks. She successfully froze Chen's body, immobilizing him. Chen shouted that if she thought she could trap him like this, she must be crazy. Everyone watching was amazed by the battle unfolding. Chen declared that breaking through the ice was an easy task for his stone spirit. However, Lin Xian switched from her ice spirit to her fire spirit, saying she couldn't let him do all the work alone. She asked if he could handle the fusion of ice and fire. She unleashed flames toward him. This shocked Chen, as she possessed 2 different elements, and her fire could suppress his stone spirit. The fire melted the ice, causing multiple injuries to Chen. The audience speculated whether he had already lost the battle. The elder was astonished that Lin Xian had twin elements. Meanwhile, her brother knew she was just showing off. Amid his coughing, Chen apologized to the elder for losing. The elder reassured him, saying it was fine since Lin Xian was on a much higher level. "I hadn't expected her to be so strong. It seems the Haoyu sect is also full of talented individuals," he admitted. Chu Zhan commented that he knew the Yunhai sect had many experts and believed someone there could match his sister. Although he wanted to fight as well, he suggested leaving that match for another day, adding that he had actually come with a request. The elder asked him to explain what he desired. He said that his sister's cousin, Lin Feng, was disrespectful to the elders and extremely arrogant. "This is an outer disciple of the Yunhai sect," he added, requesting that Lin Feng be handed over to his sister, claiming the sect wouldn't want a disciple like him. "So Officer Zhu is here to take someone for your sister," said the elder. Although the Haoyu sect might be more renowned than the Yunhai sect, they wouldn't hand someone over just because he asked. The elder recalled that Lin Feng was the infamous waste and young master of the Lin family. Just a disciple, but an arrogant one at that. "The patriarch and the great elder will arrive soon to meet Feng first. Then I'll decide what to do," he thought while Zhu awaited his answer. He asked if any enforcers of the outer sect were present. Quickly, the enforcer Ho Qing presented himself, ready to serve the elder. The elder instructed him to bring Lin Feng as quickly as possible. Around the arena, People commented that Chu Zhan was arrogant for coming to take someone, while others speculated that Feng was as good as dead. Meanwhile, our hero was still struggling to pass the trial. Even using his dark spirit, he couldn't make the bells ring. Not only did he need to pour all his strength into the attack, but he also had to dodge the reflected attacks. As expected, the trial wasn't as simple as it seemed on paper. If not for fleeting shadow, he would already have been killed by his own attacks. He had never encountered bells like these before. They weren't ordinary bells, they resembled martial arts masters. But he couldn't give up now, even though he wasn't sure what else to try to make the bells ring. He considered improving his cultivation, but it wasn't practical. He didn't have the time to train now. The bells seemed very weak, yet they reflected all his attacks. They simply let nature take its course. But why did their reflections carry such power? Then he had an idea. Letting nature take its course, as all things gain strength when allowed to follow their natural flow. This strength could grow exponentially. The bells merely reacted naturally to his attacks, matching their strength. In that case, he needed to use the bell's own strength, then reflect and amplify his attacks back at them. This way, the power would grow infinitely. Thanks to these bells, he had learned about the nature of strength. If the enemy moves, I stay still. Don't think I won't turn their strength into even greater force. He prepared his attack, shouting that it was now time for the bells to ring. Back at the arena in the Tempestuous Gorge, Chu Zhan remarked that he hadn't expected the Patriarch to come as well. Present were the great elder Emote Senglan and the Patriarch Nangong. The elder began reporting that Chu had come to the sect to seek Lin Feng, who had violated established values. Chu interrupted, saying that Feng was disrespectful to the elders and highly arrogant. Not only had he injured his cousins, but he had also humiliated the elders. Nangong, a friend of Chu's father, noted that coming directly to the sect to demand someone showed no respect. Still, since his target was only an outer disciple, they would expel him first, and then hand him over to Chu Zhan. That's what the Patriarch decided and said he would handle it. He asked how Amosia planned to proceed. The elder replied that an enforcer had already been sent to retrieve Feng and that the sect should expel him. The Patriarch thought it fitting of an elder experienced in sect politics. This is the only way we can act. The punishment is severe, but don't blame the sect for abandoning you, Lin Feng. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being weak. A loud noise and a brilliant light in the sky caught the Patriarch's attention. Some wondered aloud what it could be. The Patriarch, however, realized what was happening after so many years. At the abyss cliff, the elder who guided Feng was astonished. In his thoughts, he was certain that Bei Lao had made the right choice, as the young man seemed to have limitless potential. A dark spirit began descending the stairs from where Feng stood. Inside, the protagonist's eyes blazed with fire as he realized that the power of all things lay in strength. Lin Feng, you're one hell of a kid, said the elder. The young man wasn't sure if it was a compliment or an insult. Smiling, the elder congratulated him on passing the trial. Well, I also learned a lot from this trial. But more importantly, elder, you haven't forgotten your promise, right? Feng asked. The question brought a slight smile to the elder's face. It had been 300 years since the bells last rang, and Feng had not only made one ring but all 8 of them. And yet, he's only concerned about his friend. Perhaps this has unlocked his potential. He then summons a vial into the palm of his hand. He explains that a single pill can save his friend and that Feng may keep the rest as a reward. Feng thanks the elder. He says he must return quickly to deliver it to his friend, but the elder asks him to wait. The elder requests that Feng promise not to tell anyone about touching the bells. If he refuses, he won't be allowed to leave the abyss cliff. Feng promises not to tell anyone. However, he wonders why passing the trial isn't something to be celebrated and why it should remain a secret. The elder says that since Feng has promised, there's nothing more to say and instructs Bei Lao to escort Feng back to the Yunhai sect. A giant bird appears overhead, startling Feng, and the elder calmly remarks that Bei Lao had remained hidden until now. The first elder Feng had met upon returning to the sect comments that he hadn't expected Feng to improve so quickly. The protagonist replies that he didn't expect to see the elder there either. The elder who guided Feng to the trial is surprised to learn they know each other. Bei Lao explains that the young man had visited the Stellar Pavilion to request books and had given him his sword back then. Feng realizes that the elder from the Stellar Pavilion is far from ordinary. The elder asks why such a difficult trial was chosen for Feng. The older man laughs heartily. He explains that he wanted to see if Feng truly had what it takes. Bei Lao remarks that at least Feng didn't disappoint him. If it had been anyone else, they'd probably be dead by now. Feng politely excuses himself during their conversation. He asks exactly who they are. The elder admits he often forgets to introduce himself. He introduces Kong Lao, who resides at the cliff, and himself as Bei Lao, who spends most of his time at the Stellar Pavilion. He reveals that they are both protectors of the Yunhai sect. Feng is stunned to learn that these two are such extraordinary individuals. Even the Patriarch bows to them. The fact that both are present suggests that the set of bells is highly valued by the sect. Feng apologizes for not recognizing two such important figures in the sect. Kong Lao smiles and assures him it's not an issue. He says he will leave Feng in Bei Lao's care. Bidding farewell, he remarks that he's tired and will go rest. Bei Lao sighs, commenting that he often feels stifled in that place but prefers the outside world because it's more interesting. Turning to Feng, Bei Lao tells him they'll return to the sect and asks him not to move, as they will fly together. The elder summons his heron spirit, likely a mystical animal spirit. Feng is awestruck, amazed at the speed of their flight, and begins to see the true potential of a powerful martial artist. The heron soars swiftly across the sky. Feng, comparing himself to the elder, feels like just a drop in a vast ocean and knows he needs more training. He vows that one day, he too will climb the mountain, look down at the ground far below, and become incredibly strong. The elder asks if Feng is returning to his quarters, and the young man confirms, explaining that he must save his friend. The elder lands the bird and says this is as far as he will take him. As he sends Feng off, he silently hopes that, even after passing the trial, Feng doesn't become arrogant or complacent. He reflects that Feng is still very young, with a long journey ahead, and that the fate of the Yunhai sect may rest on his shoulders. Meanwhile, the patriarch reflects on how the bells were rung 300 years ago, when there were only 3 of them. Today, there are 8. The sect's strongest fighters were all present. This means that after 300 years, the Yunhai sect finally has another martial arts god. Officer Chu calls for Patriarch Nangong and Elder Mo. He comments on their fascination with the ringing of the bells and asks if there's any significance behind it. The elder dismisses it, saying it's nothing. He claims it's merely the disciples ringing the bells to celebrate the year's end. The patriarch, smiling, confirms the elder's explanation. However, Officer Chu doesn't seem convinced by their story. Still, nothing could compel them to reveal the truth to him. They couldn't allow outsiders to learn about the trial or the fact that the Yunhai sect isn't as weak as Chu might think. Meanwhile, Lin Feng races to save his friend. Approaching where his friend was, Ho Qing asked where he had been, as he had been waiting for him for a long time, and Feng asked if he had done something wrong. The enforcer said that Elder Mo Xia had sent him to fetch Feng. The protagonist wondered why the elder was looking for him. He remembered Kong Lao's request not to tell anyone about the bells, so only the 2 of them and Bei Lao knew about it. While trying to figure out why the inner elder had sent for him, he realized that, regardless of the reason, he needed to help his friend first. He then told the enforcer he had some things to take care of and would go with him later. The enforcer was infuriated by his attitude and said he wasn't asking for Feng to accompany him. It was an order. You should be wise with your decisions, he warned. Feng was impressed by Ho Qing's speed, as not even his fleeting shadow ability could match it. He apologized and said he had an emergency to attend to, politely asking him to wait a little longer. Ho understood and told him to hurry, as he didn't want to wait much longer. Feng went to where Han Man was, gave him the pills, and asked how he was feeling. The big guy said he could now channel his energy, and would recover very quickly. He also expressed confidence that Feng had passed the trial. Feng was happy to see his friend improving but said he now had something urgent to do. He bid farewell to his friends, saying they would meet again in the future. His friends agreed and said goodbye to him. He reunited with the enforcer, telling him he was ready. Ho asked if Feng could keep up with his speed, as he didn't want to waste energy carrying him. Feng said he would do his best to keep up. The 2 of them quickly vanished from sight. Then the enforcer takes Feng to the Great Elder. Upon arrival, our hero is surprised by what he sees. Both the Patriarch and the Great Elder are present. His cousin Lin Xian is also there, leaving him wondering why she's present. While pondering her presence, he's interrupted by the Great Elder, who asks him a question. Does he admit to the crimes he's committed? The Elder simply stares at him, while Feng feels very afraid, terrified by a sudden chill. The internal sect was intimidating. They only needed their presence to make Feng feel fear. Feng replies to the Elder that he has never broken the sect's rules and suggests there might be some misunderstanding. This enrages Mo, who asks how Feng dares to act innocent now. He accuses Feng of forgetting the crimes he's committed, claiming that he's an immodest disciple who injured his cousins and disrespected the elders. He declares it's a humiliation for the Yunhai sect to have Feng as a disciple and demands that he admit his crimes. Feng remains calm and serious, deep in thought. Now he understands why Lin Xian is there. The elder tries to intimidate the young man further, stating that he doesn't even have the courage to face the consequences of his actions. Feng silently recalls how his father disrespected Lin Xian's father, and now she's there to ruin him. He questions the elder, saying the decision about his crimes seems already made and requests the elder to investigate before making a judgment. The elder becomes furious at Feng's words, declaring that as the sect elder, he represents justice, yet Feng dares to challenge him, showing no respect for an elder. He asks again if Feng will admit his crimes. Outraged, Feng responds that if he remains silent, they'll claim he's guilty for not defending himself, but if he speaks, they'll accuse him of defiance. He questions how justice works when the elder has already decided to condemn him, but still interrogates him. Shouting, the elder declares that Feng must be tired of living. Everyone around is shocked by Feng's audacity, as Elder Mo Xie is infamous for his cruelty. The elder asks the enforcer how they should handle this situation, and the enforcer replies that Feng, in addition to denying his crimes, speaks insolently. According to the sect's rules, they should cripple his cultivation and expel him. Feng realizes the situation is hopeless. They're giving him no chance. In the worst-case scenario, he might have to break his promise and ring the bells to buy some time. He knew something had happened when the sect protectors revealed themselves while everyone mocked him, hoping for the worst. Then the elder announces that they aren't entirely cruel, since Feng's cultivation was achieved through hard work. They'll reduce the punishment. Feng must cut off one of his arms and leave the sect. Feng is shocked, wondering how an elder could be so cruel to a disciple of his own sect. Ho Qing steps forward, saying that if Feng can't bear to cut off his own arm, he'll gladly do it for him. Feng quickly turns to Ho, thinking he can't let any of this happen. Since strength commands respect, he'll let his power do the talking. Noticing the patriarch watching him closely, Feng realizes that if he can gain the patriarch's approval, he might avoid the elder's punishment. Drawing his sword, Feng tells the elder he will stand his ground and refuses to suffer such injustice. Pointing his sword at Ho, he declares that Ho has no right to judge him, as he is innocent and has no reason to cut off his arm. Ho retorts that as an enforcer, he has the authority. Feng counters, calling him merely a subordinate, and dares him to take his arm if he has the courage. The elder commands Ho to take one of Feng's arms. The enforcer accepts the order and prepares to act. Turning to Feng, Ho remarks that it's too late to beg for mercy now. He reassures Feng not to worry, as it'll be quick and won't hurt much. Ho then begins concentrating his wind dance technique. As the attack forms, Feng watches intently. He's familiar with the technique, which allows its user to dissolve into the wind, and waits for an opportunity to strike. Ho's agility skills have improved even further, as expected, thought the elder proudly of his disciple. Everyone watching the fight is in awe of Ho's speed and wonders if Feng is ready to face it. Above the arena, the young man knew he couldn't match his opponent's speed, but everything had a source of strength. He only needed to identify the force behind that wind. Standing completely still with his eyes closed, he shocked everyone around, who thought he was simply accepting the attack. The elder thought it would have been better if Feng had just given up and left the sect instead of creating all this trouble. The patriarch found it strange how calm and unafraid Feng seemed in the face of the attack. Focused, the young man knew that everyone had a weakness, and the stronger the attack, the more fatal the weakness would be. Meanwhile, the enforcer continued his charge, shouting that it was time for Feng to face his punishment. In the blink of an eye, Lin Feng severed his opponent's arm. The man screamed in agony, shocked at the loss of his limb. From outside the arena, the elder yelled, asking how Ho Qing could have been injured by such a piece of trash. Feng calmly replied that he didn't understand where the enforcer's confidence came from. Trying to save face, the enforcer claimed Feng had just been lucky and shouldn't feel proud of it. Feng retorted that there was indeed no reason to be proud of defeating someone as worthless as him. Everyone around was stunned by the outcome of the clash, wondering how such a result was possible. The patriarch realized this was no coincidence. How does this boy, still in the 8th G layer, understand strength? He wondered. Feng's cousin was also shocked by his power but refused to accept that he was stronger than her. Desperate, Ho Qing declared that he would definitely get revenge for today's incident. The elder shouted, calling Feng's attention, stating that he had certainly shown courage by refusing to admit his crime, defying punishment, and injuring the enforcer, showing no regard for the Yunhai sect. The young man calmly replied that the elder had accused him and immediately sentenced him. According to your logic, should I have let my arm be cut off to show respect for the sect? Isn't that amusing? He asked. He then requested the patriarch's permission to defend himself. The patriarch, observing him, allowed Feng to continue explaining. Feng began by stating that the elder had decided his crimes the moment he arrived and interrupted him when he tried to defend himself. He asked if, in this sect, guilt was decided solely by the elder's word, or if the sect laws determined the final verdict. This enraged the elder, who fumed at the idea of being questioned by an outer disciple. His cousin shouted, claiming that Feng had injured his own family members and disrespected the elders, yet still refused to admit his crimes. The protagonist replied that he understood why she was saying this but insisted she shouldn't mix family issues with sect matters. He asked if the elder had deemed him guilty just based on her claims, and the elder hesitated before replying. Perhaps, Feng calmly said, just as I thought. He questioned why the elder hadn't listened to his explanations but instead believed her nonsense. The elder, furious, said Feng had a sharp tongue and, for daring to humiliate an elder, he would personally cripple his cultivation. Feng responded that this was unfair, but if the elder wanted to proceed, he asked for the specific reasons behind his accusations. "I'm not afraid of death," Feng concluded, "but I want my innocence restored." The elder declared that this was where Feng's arrogance would end and vowed to cripple him, guilty or not. In that moment, the patriarch and Feng began to communicate mentally. The patriarch acknowledged Feng's talent and potential to become a core disciple in the future, but he also believed Feng's strength didn't yet match his confidence, and that he couldn't humiliate the elders like this. Feng understood the patriarch's point and said the incident had been caused by the Hao Sect, arguing that they were treating Yunhai Sect as a joke. The patriarch felt torn. He wanted to protect Feng because of his talent but feared disrespecting the elder. As these thoughts swirled, the elder charged at Feng to demonstrate how weak he really was. The elder's overwhelming willpower suppressed the young man's movements, leaving Feng wondering if the patriarch would keep hesitating. Suddenly, the elder's oppressive force vanished, relieving Feng. In front of him, the elder stood frozen, trembling with apparent anger and confusion. Desperate, the elder wondered who was overpowering him. A shadow emerged, covering most of the arena. Feng wondered if it was a shadow spirit. The elder panicked, couldn't comprehend what was happening. The great elder was intrigued, questioning where this master had come from. As the patriarch seemed to recognize the source of the shadow, everyone around the arena was shocked by the shadow that dominated Emosia. Emosia questioned if the hero had summoned reinforcements or something of the sort. Then, a voice from nowhere instructed Emosia to leave. Feng recognized the voice as Kung Lao's. Fearful, the elder slowly backed away. As the shadow dissipated, the voice reminded Emosia to control the sect and not be influenced by personal gains or losses. In his thoughts, the patriarch apologized to Kung Lao for being so indecisive. The great elder asked the patriarch if he knew the voice, to which the patriarch replied that he wasn't certain but suspected it was one of the sect's hidden masters. He then told Officer Chu that it was illogical to consider Feng guilty of crimes without evidence. The patriarch declared that the matter would end for now but that they would investigate thoroughly to provide a proper explanation. Chu questioned whether the Yunhai sect would not give up on Lin Feng. Meanwhile, the protagonist recognized Officer Chu and couldn't believe his cousin had involved him in this. Chu then asked the patriarch if he could send some experts to train with him, as he was feeling quite bored. The patriarch denied the request, reasoning that Chu was stronger than the sect's disciples and that it would be better to wait until the disciples had more training. Chu tried to argue with the patriarch's decision, but the patriarch calmly repeated that they should leave it for another day. Again, Chu tried to counter Nangong's decision. The patriarch, raising his voice, asked if the Hao sect members were always this discourteous. This startled Chu and his sister. Fuming, Chu thought to himself that he would relent only because Gong was an elder. Even though Gong was merely the patriarch of the Yunhai sect, he dared to raise his voice. The patriarch, however, remained composed, noting that he had spoken politely because Chu was the young lord of the Hao sect. But he warned Chu not to press his luck, thinking he could mess with anyone he pleased. Chu grudgingly accepted the patriarch's decision, while his sister told Feng that he might hide in the sect, but she would find him at the family gathering. As if he needed to hide from her. Summoning his magical bird, Chu declared he would forget today's incident. But he advised Feng to remember the shame he had brought upon him, adding that he would return someday. With that, he flew off on his bird. The patriarch, reflecting on Kung Lao's words, agreed that the sect must not lose face. If Chu returned, they would show their strength. The elder asked what they would do about Lin Feng. The patriarch dismissed Feng, saying they would forget today's matter. The elder, furious, protested that Feng had injured executor Ho Qing. The patriarch replied that Feng had merely been defending himself. Their gazes locked, creating tension in the air. Feng turned, lifted his head, and began walking away. The only way to earn respect is by being powerful. Otherwise, no one will pity you, even if you die. Until your strength matches your dignity. Remember, don't be too arrogant, the patriarch mentally advised Feng. Feng turned, nodded in acknowledgement of the advice, and left, determined to grow stronger. Yunhai Sect, Heaven's Path Peak. A man commented to Schwer that it was a very convenient place for training. The woman replied that she didn't think his mind was focused on training right now. Lu Fei responded that he could spend more time with the beautiful Schwer before and after training. How could he resist? Outwardly, she told him he was such a naughty boy, but inwardly, she thought he was just another fool who thought with the wrong half of his body. She only accompanied him because his brother, Lu Liang, was an inner disciple and provided her with cultivation resources. Otherwise, she wouldn't tolerate him. As they walked across the peak, they came across a cave, and he suggested they have some fun inside. Entering the cave, something startled him. Feng was meditating inside, and the woman suggested they find another place. But Lu Fei said that Feng appeared to be only in the 8th Qi layer, and vowed to make him leave. The woman warned him against it. He interrupted her, saying it was fine because the young man was weak and he would cripple his cultivation. He called out to Feng, telling him to stop pretending to meditate. The protagonist opened his eyes, which gleamed with intensity, and gave a serious stare. This startled the couple standing before him. Standing up, Feng asked if the man intended to expel him and disrupt his cultivation. Lin Feng retorted that, since Feng had heard them, he should cripple his own cultivation and leave the cave. The young man agreed and began walking toward them, but the man questioned if Feng intended to leave without first crippling his own cultivation. Feng continued approaching the two. Getting closer, he asked if he had said he was leaving. Fei quickly prepared to attack Feng. Feng swiftly grabbed his hand, breaking his bones. Fei screamed in desperation. The young man then grabbed his neck, asking how he had planned to cripple his cultivation. Tightening his grip on the man's neck, Feng asked twice more about his plans. He said admitting he was wrong wasn't enough. Fei wanted to cripple him, but now that he realized he couldn't, he just wanted to leave. If you want to cripple someone's cultivation, you must be prepared for yours to be crippled as well, Feng said. He then threw him with all his strength out of the cave. The man flew at high speed, slamming into the rocks. Feng turned and told the woman to leave, and she quickly ran out. Outside, she rushed to help Lin Feng, who was coughing. The protagonist thought that since the man had tried to cripple his cultivation, he would make him wish he were dead. Beaten and exhausted, the man muttered that they would return. Some time later, Lin Feng continued meditating in the cave. He sensed someone approaching and thought the man had returned for another beating. The man arrived with his brother, pointing at Feng and declaring he was the bastard who broke his arm and crippled his cultivation. Lin Fei's brother stated that he would cripple Feng's cultivation and break his limbs so he could experience the consequences. Our hero quickly recognized the man's power, realizing he was likely stronger than the enforcer Ho Qing. Feng knew he had to gain the advantage by attacking first. He charged at the man using his new skill, Celestial Waves, but the man blocked the attack and even managed to injure Feng. Feng quickly retreated after losing the first exchange. He remarked that for someone to overcome his attack and even injure him, the man must be at the soul layer. Confidently, the man confirmed Feng's analysis, saying he had reached the soul coding. But it's too late for regrets, the man said. He unleashed an incredible power and prepared to attack Feng. Calmly, Feng replied that his only regret was not killing the man's little brother. Furious, the man charged at Feng, saying he would see how long Feng could keep that smug smile. As he rushed at Feng, preparing his attack, the young man calmly drew his sword, ready to counter. When Feng struck with his sword, the man caught the blade with one hand. "Did you really think you could face someone who's reached the soul coding?" the man asked. Holding Feng's sword, the man launched another attack. Feng dodged, but the attack still grazed his face. Feng infused his sword with energy, shocking the man and forcing him to release the blade. Free again, Feng used the Thunder Roar sword technique. In a blink, the man moved out of the attack's range, appearing calmly on another side of the arena. He warned Feng not to push his luck. Feng launched another attack with his 9 Celestial Waves skill. The man broke through the technique with one hand. Focusing his energy, the man asked if Feng thought irritating him would earn him a quick death. Leaping high into the air, the man prepared his next attack, descending toward Feng while declaring he would kill him slowly and painfully. The man struck, and Feng tried to block with his sword. The clash of their techniques caused a massive explosion. When the dust settled, Feng was kneeling on the ground, and the man remarked that for someone at the Qi layer, Feng was skilled. "But being skilled won't change the fact that you're going to die," he added. "First, I'll cripple your cultivation. Then I'll break each of your limbs," the man concluded. He charged at Feng again, but Feng quickly blocked the attack. Despite his injuries, Feng managed to hold back the man's powerful strike. Impressed, the man wondered how Feng, even while injured, could still block his attacks. The protagonist unleashed his full power, shocking his opponent, who began to wonder if Feng had been hiding his true strength. Feng focused, determined to continue fighting. He mocked the man for talking too much and questioned whether that was all the soul coding was capable of. Infuriated, the man declared Feng was arrogant, relying only on strange tricks, and being stuck in the Qi layer would never defeat him. He charged at Feng with another attack. Feng blocked it once more, then swiftly counterattacked with his sword, striking the man's arm. Then he surprised the man, as he did not imagine he would be injured in that battle. Feng remained focused, exuding his aura. He then began preparing another attack, creating a massive pressure zone. The area startled the man, who wondered what it was. He distanced himself from Feng, afraid of that sword. Our hero activated his fleeting shadow technique. Lin Feng, who was calmly sitting at the cave's entrance, felt something strange that caught his attention. Feng attacked Fei, who was seated at the door, and the woman screamed desperately. His opponent did not understand what was happening and thought he was just trying to escape. When he turned, he saw his dear brother lying on the ground. He was shocked by the scene before him. His brother was lying on the ground with his throat slit. Then he screamed to the heavens that he would not rest until Lin Feng was dead, and the young man was already far away, running to protect himself, staggering and stumbling, as he was badly injured. He leaned against a tree, unable to run any further. He then took the vial he had received after passing the trial. He swallowed one of the pills, which healed his injuries almost instantly. He marveled at the healing potential of the pills. He understood why Kung Lao had stated that just one pill was enough to heal Han Man. Looking around, he was surprised by the place he saw. Unintentionally, he had arrived at the rift leading to the hot springs. He had been hoping to find a cave for his training, and it turned out to be quite easy. Upon reaching the waters, there was the same pink-haired woman as before. She told him that in this world, there were always lascivious disciples who thought of nothing but dirty thoughts instead of training. With a smile on his face, he asked how she dared return there. Lu Fei asked why she should not return. Sarcastically, he said that she had accused him of perversion, so he might as well act the part. Furious, she asked if he wanted to die. She then prepared an attack with her bow. He commented that she had become stronger than before. Dodging the arrows she shot at him, Feng said he had also grown stronger. Gently touching the woman's chin, he remarked on her terrible temper. Lu Fei felt flustered by his gesture. Quickly, she jumped back, distancing herself from him. Preparing a powerful attack, she stated that it was no surprise he had returned and asked if he really thought his power would be enough. She then focused on her attack. As she fired at him, she said that each of her shots was powered by a pull force exceeding 9,500 pounds. Calmly, he waited for the attack to approach. When the attack was near, he dispersed it using only his sword. She was stunned that he blocked her attacks so easily. Feng remarked that, in the eyes of geniuses like her, people like him were not even worth mentioning, right? He asked as he swiftly appeared behind her, placing his sword in front of her neck. He continued, saying that not being mentioned did not mean his dignity could be trampled upon. She, with evident fear in her voice, asked what he would do to her, and he asked what she thought would happen. In the blink of an eye, he stepped away from her and told her not to take it too seriously, as he was not interested in her, and told her to leave. He then clenched his teeth, wondering why he would not take it seriously. She shouted, declaring she would definitely defeat him. She jumped back into the water again, as if determined to train and focus on defeating Feng. Meanwhile, he continued walking into the cave, and he was certain that Lu Fei had good taste. It was an excellent place for training. Then 20 days passed, and the protagonist continued training with all his effort. His dark spirit improved every day. He then released his dark aura, resting. Finally, he managed to master it. Now he could probably do whatever he wanted, as long as he didn't encounter someone from the soul layer. Outside the cave where he was training, Miss Lu Fei continued training arduously. Leaving the cave, he asked her how many days had passed. She replied that it had been 20 days. Walking past her, he remarked that he had not expected to spend so much time training. Before he left, she asked what his current cultivation level was. He replied that he had just entered the 9th Chi layer. She was surprised that he could easily defeat her with only 8 Chi layers. Clenching her teeth, she admitted she had believed she possessed more talent than others, but now even someone inferior to her could challenge her. It was time for Feng to return to Yanzhou City for the annual gathering. A few days later, upon arriving in Yanzhou City, amid the murmurs and noises of the Grand Hall, a man said he heard that Lin Xian awakened her martial spirit and is currently trying to master soul coding, and that she had become an inner disciple of the Haoyu sect, and another man said she became even more powerful after achieving soul coding. They continued mentioning various other people, comparing their power levels, trying to determine the strongest. Slamming the table, a woman asked if they called her just to listen to that boring conversation. She was told no, and the reason they gathered everyone there was to share some news. The city governor will host a combat gathering during the new year, and anyone who wants to participate can join without restrictions. And someone asked Xiao Lan if she understood what he meant. One of the men sitting at the table said he heard that the trash from the Lin family had improved and would probably participate too. It was replied that the Lin family has several exceptional disciples and doesn't need the trash to represent them. With a sarcastic smile on his face, Gu Song said it was inappropriate to call the young master of the Lin family trash. Trash is trash. Besides, his position as young master will eventually, arriving in the city, drawing everyone's attention. Everyone was astonished, as he seemed to be a disciple of one of the great families returning after a training period. Riding his horse, Feng was happy to have arrived in the city in time for the gathering. While riding his horse through the city, he heard a voice coming from a building saying they recognized him. The man shouted, asking if he was the young master Lin Feng, and said that they were having a meeting at that moment, and invited him to join the gathering. The protagonist recognized that one of the participants at the meeting was Lin Yu. He thanked for the invitation and said he would accept it. Lin Yu then interrupted him, saying that place was not for him, and that it would be better if he left. The young man called him arrogant, and asked since when he obeyed his orders. "That's the attitude expected of a young master from the Lin family," said another young man. Feng tied his horse and entered the building. Yu was still in disbelief that Feng would join them, and the young man reminded him that, above all, Feng is the young master of his family. The young man approached the table and asked if he could sit there. One of those sitting at the table told him to go to hell as best as he could. Feng then asked the man who had called him what was going on there. Laughing, he asked if Feng thought he had the privilege of sitting with them. With a malicious smile, our hero asked if he was mocking him. The young man asked what he would do if they were mocking him, and told him to get lost. Feng grabbed one of the cups on the table and poured its contents over the young man's head. In disbelief, the man asked if he had really poured a drink on his head. While the man yelled that he didn't know where Feng had gathered so much courage, Feng grabbed another jug and poured it all over the man's face. Then he said he didn't understand him. Did he keep calling him trash to make him afraid, or was he just trying to hide his insignificance? Desperate, the man lunged at Feng, who calmly grabbed his hand and asked what right he had to call him trash, then threw the man out of the building window. Everyone was shocked that he had thrown someone of the 8th Chi layer, and wondered if this was really the pathetic Feng. Lin Yu was terrified by everything he had just witnessed. The young master approached him and asked what he had said. Yu froze in front of him and couldn't even speak. Feng then slapped him across the face, and told him that, from now on, he should measure his words. The man who had told him to go to hell, with a trembling voice, told him not to come closer. Feng simply looked him deep in the eyes and asked if he was scared, and the man lowered his head, trembling with fear. The protagonist then left the place as if nothing had happened. Everyone left there was astonished by his current power. He found his horse and mounted it to ride through the city. He passed by Gu Song, who was lying on the ground. Amid coughs, Song said this wouldn't end like this, finally arriving back at his home. The guards were questioning among themselves what cultivation level Feng had reached, and doubted that he had surpassed the 7th layer. And they said his cousins had grown much stronger, especially Lin Qian, and that if they were Feng, they would have stayed hidden in the sect. If Miss Lin Qian is like the moon, Feng would be the firefly trying to reach her. The young man knocked on his home's door. His father, inside, was making notes on scrolls. He paused as he saw his son entering through the door. While rolling up the scroll he had been writing, he greeted his son with a smile, happy about his return. Feng said there were only 7 days left until the start of the annual gathering, so he came back. His father's expression changed drastically. He told the young man not to participate in this year's gathering, and Feng asked why. His father explained that their family was not in a peaceful state lately, and that everyone was coming after them. He warned him to be careful. Feng, with a smile on his face, told him not to worry, as none of that mattered. If anyone wanted to attack him during the gathering, they would first need to have the necessary strength. His father found his son's confidence strange, but he didn't question it. He just let out a sincere laugh, saying he had underestimated his own son and invited him to the shop to find something for them. His father then advised him to be cautious with Lin Qian, as she had already become a soul-layer cultivator. Feng understood his father's advice and excused himself, saying he would train until the day of the gathering. The old man felt proud of his son. A horse approaching caught the guard's attention. It was Miss Lin Qian arriving. The guards greeted her, bowing before her. One of the men took her horse while another guided her. One guard told the other that, whether in power or beauty, Qian stood out. The young woman thought that this time she would make Feng regret it. Finally, the great day of the Lin family's annual gathering arrived. As Feng and his father passed through the crowd, many rumors buzzed among the people present. Smiling, the young man told his father to stay calm, as he wouldn't allow their family's reputation to be dragged through the mud. His father sat on his throne as the leader of the Lin family. A man then announced the beginning of the annual gathering. The first round will be open participation. Step onto the stage and fight each other. The 32 remaining participants will advance to the next round, said the announcer. On the stage, Feng wondered if Lin Qian and the others would target him as their sole focus. Looking around, he noticed everyone was fixated on him. His opponents nearby said the first thing they needed to do was get rid of the young master. Lin Qian arrived and told everyone to stop where they were. She declared that no one was to touch Lin Feng in this round. With her abilities ready in her hands, she asked if everyone had heard her. The crowd dispersed, leaving only the young woman there. She told the young man that they wouldn't harm him in this round. He would advance easily, as it would be tedious to see him out of the game so soon. He was surprised that she would let him advance so easily. With a slight smirk, he said it was pleasant to advance without any effort. Turning her back on him, she told him to relax while he still could. Everyone began whispering among themselves, realizing they would have to wait for their chance to fight Feng. One of the family elders asked why the young woman was sparing the trash. He was answered that the second round would be organized as a tournament where everyone would have multiple chances to face each other. "Don't you think it'll be more fun to watch the second round?" asked the man, and the elder confirmed, admitting he hadn't thought of that. The first round then concluded, leaving 32 combatants on the stage. Groups would be formed for the second round, with each group consisting of 8 participants, and only one winner per group. The 2 members of each group with the most victories will advance to the next stage, said the tournament announcer. The draw to form the groups began. In the first group, Lin Qian was set against Lin Han. Lin Feng was placed in the fourth group against Lin Yen. The battle for the first group was about to begin. The two stared at each other for a moment. Before any attack, the man surrendered. Everyone knew it was the best choice to yield rather than fight Lin Qian. The young lady praised him, saying that at least he knew his limits. Lin Yen, seeing how quickly the battle beside him ended, told Feng that he should also surrender to save his efforts. Before Feng could say a word, the announcer declared Lin Yen the winner. While his opponent laughed, Feng didn't understand what had happened. The tournament host told him to leave the stage to avoid disrupting the gathering. The young man questioned why Lin Yen had been declared the winner when he hadn't surrendered. Shouting at him, the host ordered him to leave, saying the reasons didn't matter, and Feng countered, saying he hadn't surrendered, so there was no reason for him to lose. The old man yelled, claiming he had the right to do so because he was the second elder and also the host of the gathering. The head of the family says that no one respects him and states that the host went against the annual meeting rules by declaring a winner without anyone fighting. He questions under what authority the host made that decision. The host replies that everyone knew he would win the fight, so he did it to spare him any embarrassment. The head of the family says it seems like he's trying to humiliate him and tells him to step down, leaving the great elder as the new host. The men sitting beside the head disagree with his decision. Smiling, the head asks if that is a threat. Everyone around him asks him to reconsider his decision. He looked at everyone around him, stood up and asked what they would do if he stuck to his opinion. One of the men says that the second elder did nothing wrong, so he had no right to strip him of his position as host. If he does so, it would bring personal discord to the political scenario, bringing dishonor to the Lin family. Everyone watching knew the goal of that year's meeting was to remove the head of the family from his position. The head says he knows what they are planning and that it seems he'll need a good reason to be removed. He decides to give them a good reason. He then says that his son will fight Lin Yen, and if he is defeated, he will step down as the family head. The other elders were surprised by his proposal. The head continues, saying that if Lin Feng emerges victorious, it will prove that the second elder broke the rules, and he will receive one of his strikes and be stripped of his position. The elders agree with the head, thinking he's digging his own grave, as Lin Feng wouldn't be able to defeat Lin Yen. The second elder is asked if he has any objections. With a trembling voice, he says he has none, but in his mind, he fears what he might lose if Feng wins. One of the men knew Feng had reached at least the 8th layer since he managed to paralyze Lin Han, so he would easily defeat Yen. It is then announced that Lin Yen will fight Lin Feng. Yen says it seems it's not enough to be in the mud. He also needs to drag his father to the same level, and that he cannot believe he will be the one to seal the fate of the family head position. He charges at Feng, ready to attack him. Feng asks if his words reflect his swordsmanship, as both are pure nonsense. Quickly, Feng blocks Yan's attack, and counters with a single strike, throwing his opponent off the stage, falling like trash to the ground, far from the stage. On the ground, with a desperate look, Yan asks if he has lost. Feng says that a swordsman must be fast, precise, and relentless, and Lin Yen possessed none of those qualities. Turning his back, he says Yan's swordsmanship shames everyone present. Everyone was astonished by our hero's power, and his father, the family head, announces his victory. He asked the second elder if he remembered what had been agreed upon. Trembling with fear, he asks what he means by that. Preparing his attack, the head asks what he thinks. "Take one of my strikes and relinquish your position as second elder," said the head. The host desperately tries to flee. One of the men says he should forgive Lin Yi, as he has contributed greatly to their family. But the head disagrees and attacks the second elder with his ice barrage ability. Yi was left kneeling on the ground after taking that attack on his back. Seconds later, he collapsed unconscious. The head tells someone to remove the body so the meeting can continue. He turns to the men staring at him and asks if they have any complaints. Everyone is shocked by the extent of his power. One of the men is furious, as the second elder's power remains enormous. The head says that, in that case, he will allow the 6th elder to act as the meeting's host. But if it happens again, he will take out his anger on him. After all this, as the rounds progress, the fights become shorter and shorter. In the 3rd bracket, Lin Hen surrendered to Lin Wu. In the 4th bracket, Lin Feng won after Lin Yu's surrender. The second round ended, and its finalists were Lin Qian, Lin Hong, Lin Feng, Lin Yu, Lin Wu, Lin Hen, Lin Ing, Lin Li. The 3rd round begins with Lin Ing versus Lin Qian. Lin Ing says that, although she is no match for her opponent, she would like to face her to experience her strength. Lin Qian agrees with her and tells her to begin. Then the young woman starts attacking first, and charges toward her opponent. Qian says that Ing is full of openings and begins preparing her counterattack. She quickly freezes Ying's feet. The ice spreads across her entire body, freezing her completely and causing her to fall to the ground. Lin Qian's victory is announced, and now the second fight begins between Lin Hong and Lin Yu. Hong quickly surrenders, thinking he is the weakest in that group, and this is the farthest he can go. Smiling, Yu says he made a wise decision. The next fight is announced, Lin Feng vs Lin Li. Lin Li asks why Feng doesn't attack first. Feng calmly accepts the proposal. Laughing, Li says that if his opponent is trash, his victory is guaranteed. In the blink of an eye, Feng runs and grabs his opponent by the neck. He throws him away like trash, slamming him against the temple wall. Lin Li is shocked because that terrifying power didn't hurt him. Feng demonstrated perfect energy control, proving everyone wrong, as he was a genius. Feng's victory is announced, and for the fourth fight, Lin Wu will face Lin Hen. Lin Wu asks if the fight is necessary since the outcome is obvious. Hen responds that he doesn't see it that way. The entire audience boos, calling Wu trash and saying he brings dishonor to the Lin family. Wu tells Hen to leave the stage if he doesn't want to fight. Hen starts smiling and walks slowly toward his opponent. Wu wonders what he's doing. Gathering his power, Hen tells Wu to leave the stage and begins a countdown. Releasing his power, he declares that if Wu is still there when the countdown ends, he will face the consequences. Calmly, he starts counting. Wu is terrified and asks why Hen has power comparable to soul layer cultivation. In the audience, one of the elders remarks that their family is a haven for geniuses, as another has reached the soul layer. That damned kid hasn't disappointed him after all. He had hidden his power very well, but it's better that he understands the situation and doesn't interfere with the elder's plans. Hen calmly continues the countdown. Wu is very scared of his opponent's power. He says he didn't want to fight but couldn't appear weak. He simply didn't think Hen was worth his effort. Quickly, Wu surrenders out of fear. In the crowd, Feng chuckles at him. Pointing at Feng, Wu says he has no right to laugh. One of the family's leading elders says it's not shameful for Wu to lose, but thinking he could point fingers is amusing. A man next to him calls Wu nothing but an overconfident piece of trash. Shouting, Wu asks Feng what he's looking at, calling him just a piece of trash relying on his father, and asks if he wants to face him. Feng calmly steps onto the stage. Mockingly, he repeats Hen's line, that he'll count to 3, and if Wu doesn't leave the stage, he'll face the consequences. Wu shouts furiously, asking if Feng wants to die. Now on the stage, staring at his opponent, Feng starts counting. That gaze terrifies Wu. He wonders what that pressure is, why he's trembling, and whether Feng has already reached the soul layer. Walking toward his opponent, Feng continues counting. With every step, Wu grows more desperate, stepping backward. Those watching wonder what's happening to make Lin Wu retreat. Lin Feng hasn't even unsheathed his sword. Then our hero tells his opponent to say his final words. Lin Wu is desperate because he can't move, overwhelmed by Feng's dark spirit. Paralyzed by fear and despair, he declares his surrender. The protagonist tells him he didn't say to surrender but to leave the stage. The seventh elder rises angrily at what Feng is doing. The family head tells him to sit down and watch the fights. Grinding his teeth, the sixth elder says the trash, Feng, won't be showing off for long. Lin Feng's victory is announced, and it's declared that before the final round begins, there will be a 30-minute break. Lin Qian says that everyone is still full of energy and doesn't need a break. The other 3 combatants agree with her. Since everyone agrees, the final round will begin. Lin Feng vs Lin Hong, Lin Qian vs Lin Hen. The sixth elder is eagerly awaiting a fight between Lin Qian and Lin Hen. It seems everyone has pinned their hopes on them. Lin Hen and Lin Qian are widely known as powerful martial artists, and Lin Hong is also strong but no match for the other 2. In the end, only Lin Qian is capable of facing Lin Hen. The sixth elder did a good job, as at this point, only combat strength matters. A man asks for permission to say a few words to him. Turning to him, he begins to hear that the upcoming fights will showcase the pinnacles of the younger generation, so they cannot surrender. Victory must be granted to the contestants who push their opponents into unconsciousness to demonstrate their true potential. Those watching and hearing his words commented that he planned to have Hong beat Feng mercilessly. He concluded by asking the family head what he thought of his proposal. He noticed the head grit his teeth and questioned whether Feng lacked the courage to test the limits of the younger generation. Before the head could respond, Feng said to accept the proposal. Looking at the young man, he saw that he was very confident in his abilities. The family head quickly said he accepted the proposal. Ironically, the elder remarked that it was expected of the family head and signaled for the combats to begin. The host announced the start of the final round of the annual meeting. Lin Qian's fight began, and as she unleashed her power, she said that surrender was impossible, so he should try to defeat her. Smiling, Lin Hen replied that even though he couldn't beat her, he would still fight. The 2 stared at each other, ready to begin the battle. She then activated her Eternal Snow ability. It formed a dome around the entire stage. The audience was astonished by the technique. Confidently, the elder said that now that his daughter was even closer to mastering soul coding, Her spirit was taking on a physical form. Hen knew he had to act since he was at a disadvantage, but he commented that she was embarrassing herself. She replied that although both had achieved soul coding, she would show him the difference between her variant spirit and his regular one. He increased his aura significantly, shouting at her not to get too full of herself. He charged at her with everything he had. With just an ice barrier, she blocked his attack, creating an absurd shockwave. But it didn't faze Hen, who quickly disappeared in front of her, striking a blow behind her in the blink of an eye. With a smile on his face, thinking it had been easy, looking at her again, he was utterly shocked. Xian's body dissipated before his eyes, and reformed slowly behind him. She said he wouldn't be able to hurt her in her territory. He replied that he would destroy them both. Then, sarcastically, she told him he could try as much as he wanted. He focused and increased the level of his power, activating the Flame Scales ability, which covered his arm with scales and claws. Smiling, she said it seemed she'd have to take him seriously. He then charged at her with all his might. She activated her Ice Prison ability. The ice began rushing toward him rapidly. With the Anomaly Destroyer ability, he broke all the ice coming his way. She created several ice barriers, which he shattered one by one. Reaching the final barrier, Qian asked if he truly believed she would allow that to happen. Since that was all he could do, she would demonstrate how flames should truly behave. All the ice transformed into fire, burning his body. When he fell to the ground, everyone around thought he had died, but he declared he was fine. As Lin Qian's victory was announced, the elder was relieved she hadn't killed the young man, and everyone was astonished by her incredible spiritual power. Leaving the stage, she looked at Feng and said she hoped he wouldn't die during the fight. Hong commented that both he and Qian had been waiting a long time for this fight. He urged Feng to surrender since he had no chance of beating him. Impatient, Feng told him to get to the point and revealed that he had also achieved soul coding. There was no need for suspense. Hong asked how he knew, but quickly dismissed it, saying it didn't matter because, in any case, Feng could already consider himself dead. He then unleashed his aura around his body. The audience was surprised to see he had achieved soul coding, though it wasn't shocking given his great talent. Walking toward Feng, with each step, he froze the ground beneath him. Reaching Feng, the young man was nearly entirely frozen. He asked how it felt to experience the power of soul coding, and laughed at him as the ice encased him more and more. But in the blink of an eye, Feng broke free of the ice and struck Hong with a powerful kick, sending Hong flying far away from him. As if dusting off his clothes, he asked if his opponent's skills were limited to body painting. This infuriated his opponent, who shouted that Feng had asked for it. Hong then prepared another powerful attack. He unleashed a rain of swords against Feng. Using only his Thunder Roar sword ability, Feng repelled all the swords. He looked at his opponent with an exceptionally calm expression. This made Hong furious, prompting him to use his Ice Prison technique. A significant amount of ice began forming a dome around the protagonist, but with his 9 Celestial Waves technique, Feng cleared all the ice around him. This terrified Hong, as Feng made it look effortless. And indeed, for our hero, it had been easy to counter those abilities. Hong wondered how Feng had become so powerful. The family leader knew Feng hadn't even used his martial spirit yet, and that when he did, it would bring hell to earth. Shouting that Feng should consider himself dead, Hong concentrated his power. Feng asked if shouting made him any stronger. The two began to build up their energy. As Hong prepared to unleash his freezing shadow technique, Feng simply struck with his sword. The blow landed squarely on his opponent, leaving him completely slashed. As his arm oozed strawberry juice, Hong thought Lin Feng was going to kill him. The protagonist said he hadn't sought conflict, but the Lin family always wanted him dead and asked if Hong really wanted to die. One of the elders shouted, asking how Feng dared to say such a thing. The family leader told him to stay quiet, reminding him that he had come up with the idea and now wanted to intervene because Hong couldn't win. This enraged Lin Badao. On the stage, Feng said if Hong believed family ties didn't matter, he would sever them for him. Then Lin Qian intervened in the duel, asking how Feng dared and attacking him. As a ball of fire mixed with ice headed toward our hero, he told her to stay out of it. Using only his sword, he reflected her attack. To avoid being hit by her own attack, she quickly dodged. Feng sensed someone approaching quickly. He drew his sword and tried to block the attack but failed, taking a hit to the chest. This made him cough up. "Watermelon juice." The man who attacked him smiled as Feng stepped back. "You were lucky," said the man. Feng then heard someone using the 1,000 miles of ice technique, and was startled. The family leader appeared with his powerful aura active. The man began to freeze and panicked, unable to move. Seeing the family leader approaching, he desperately begged for help. The leader calmly touched the man with his magic-filled hand. The man, with a trembling voice, tried to ask how the leader dared to kill someone. But before he could finish, the family leader stated that an elder attacking his son stealthily was unforgivable. The crowd was shocked by the family leader's immense power, needing only one strike to kill the 7th elder. Turning to Lin Qian, he said that a genius from the Haoyu sect and a resident of Shadow Mountain Village was nothing but a disgrace. Walking toward her, Lin Qian asked why he was approaching. Bluntly, he replied that it was to kill her. Terrified, she said he wouldn't dare. The elders, alarmed, asked what he was about to do. He replied that he was tired of their stupidity and would kill anyone who stood in his way. An elder asked if he thought he could kill anyone he wanted. Lin Hai questioned who among them would try to stop him. A voice from the sky said that such an attitude was presumptuous even for Lin Hai. The family leader immediately recognized the voice. Descending from the heavens, everyone felt the overwhelming presence of the honorable elder. Standing face to face with Lin Hai, the two stared each other down. Feng was amazed by the pressure emanating from the elder. One of the elders quickly informed the honorable elder that Lin Hai had rebelled against the Lin family, killed the 7th elder without reason, and now intended to kill the family's genius fighter, pleading for the elder to punish him accordingly. Lin Hai burst out laughing. The elder asked what he found so amusing. Lin Hai replied that he finally understood their lack of scruples. It was because they had the honorable elder backing them. This enraged the elder, who asked how Lin Hai dared speak to him that way. One of the elders said their uncle was not just the honorable elder but also Lin Hai's superior, so he should be punished for his disrespect. Calmly, Lin Hai said he no longer wanted the position of family leader. The honorable elder stared intently at him and attacked. The attack struck Lin Hai directly. He fell to the ground and was quickly helped by his son. Lin Hai then said that he had taken a blow and, from that moment on, was no longer associated with him. The elder said that since Lin Hai carried the Lin family blood, he wouldn't kill him but told him to leave. Lin Hai and his son then left. One of the elders reflected that if all the family members could work together, reviving the clan wouldn't be impossible. Lin Hai's injuries were quickly healed after one of Feng's pills. After recovering, he decided to head to the city. The young Feng returned to the city after his father's departure. He looked at the sky, sensing the change in weather. The sky darkened, and it began to rain. He covered himself with his raincoat. Then he spotted the establishment where he had fought shortly after arriving in the city. He approached the door and told the attendant to take good care of his horse, and the man asked him to follow. Feng entered the establishment. Inside, people were talking about how Lin Hai, the family head, and his trash son, Lin Feng, had been expelled from the Lin family. He spotted an empty table in the corner and went to sit there. Feng knew that in that restaurant, he could gather more details about the tournament that Yangzhou City was planning to hold. The waiter approached and asked what he would like. He ordered a bottle of wine and some appetizers. Smiling, the waiter said he would bring his order shortly. The people there were commenting that the news had already spread throughout the city and that Lin Ba Dao had the power to subjugate Lin Hai. They said he had 2 sons who had achieved soul coding, far surpassing the trash Feng, and that the expulsions were a natural outcome. Someone entered, drawing the attention of everyone present. It was Na Lan Feng who had arrived. A woman accompanying her approached Feng's table. She handed him a silver coin, telling him to leave and find another table. Feng took out a silver coin from his pocket and told her to find another table herself. She then assumed he must be wealthy. She asked if he knew who she was. He replied that he didn't care who she was. She stared at him intently. Smiling beneath his hat, he asked if she was at the 8th Chi coding layer. With an arrogant tone, she asked if he was scared now. Na Lan Feng told her not to cause trouble. She apologized to him on behalf of the woman. Taking a sip of his wine, he simply said, "Like master, like servant." Lu Er said that the man needed to be taught a lesson, but Na Lan said if he didn't want to leave, they should find another table. A man sitting at a nearby table invited the young lady to sit with them. Smiling, she accepted the invitation. The men wondered who that man was to ignore Miss Na Lan. A voice from upstairs called out, asking why Na Lan wasn't keeping him company, or if he'd have to make her beg for his presence. She looked up and saw that it was Lin Qian who had called her, and she replied she was on her way. Everyone present was shocked that the 2 most stunning women in Yangzhou were gathered there. Feng pondered about their presence. He stood up and asked to join another table. The smiling man agreed and asked if he needed anything else. Lu Er told Lan Hai to cripple him, pointing at Feng. Meanwhile, Feng continued eating. Lan Hai told the woman she could consider the man as good as dead. He approached Feng's table and said he admired him for remaining so calm. The enraged woman told him to stop chatting and just break one of his limbs to settle the matter. Smiling, the man agreed with her. Tapping his chopsticks on the table and standing up, Feng asked if they were finished. When Lan Hai saw who was under the hat, he panicked. He backed away from Feng. The woman asked why he was retreating and not attacking. Feng removed his hat and warned them not to irritate him. Furiously, the woman shouted that she couldn't believe he would leave unscathed. Quickly, Lan Hai grabbed her and told her to stop struggling and follow him. As she was dragged away, she asked if he had lost his mind. The men in the hall wondered who that young man was, as just one sentence had made Lan Hai retreat. In another room, Lu Er demanded a good explanation. The man said that the young man was Lin Feng. She asked if he was talking about the trash of the Lin family. The man questions whether she wants to die by calling him trash. Based on the information they had about the meeting, if the honorable elder hadn't appeared, Feng would have eliminated Hong. The woman asks if that young man could defeat someone who surpassed the chi coding. Lan Hai says it is the truth and tells her to ask Miss Na Lan Feng if she doesn't believe him. She then thanks him for saving her and says she owes him one. Later that night, Feng was in his room training to improve his martial spirit. Outside, several ninjas were preparing. Slowly, they approached where Feng was. A man says he's in room number 2 and instructs them to stay quiet. Leading the group of ninjas was Lan Hai. Slowly, they made their way to Feng's door. One of the ninjas gives the signal, and they quickly invade the room. They shoot arrows at the bed, but they only destroy the mattress and the bed. Once the dust settled, they noticed the young man wasn't there. They saw the window was open and wondered if he had escaped. He noticed someone's presence behind him, but there was no time to dodge. Using the Howling Thunder Sword, Feng eliminates all the ninjas in his room. He split each ninja into 2. The ninjas outside found it strange that the ones who entered were taking too long. Then, through the wall, Feng cuts the ninjas in 2. All the bodies were left lying on the ground after the strike. Feng smiled and quickly fled. One of the ninjas says they should go after him, and that anyone who tries to flee will die. Feng keeps running during his escape. One of the ninjas aims a crossbow and fires an arrow at him, which he easily dodges and continues his escape. He thought that the one who fired the arrow wouldn't lose in strength to Lu Fei. Dodging more arrows, he realized he would be exhausted if things continued like this. Then he spotted a forest ahead. The man ordered the ninjas to stop, and in the blink of an eye, Feng appeared. He separated the ninja's head from the rest of his body. All the ninjas and their leader were gathered there. Feng then recognized Na Lan Hai. He told him that only a few clans could mobilize so many specialists, but Hai's position didn't allow him to influence so many experts. Hai replied that the rumors about Lin Hai's son being the shame of the family were exaggerated, but the Lin Feng he knew wasn't as trashy as he seemed. Our hero asked what he wanted with this. Hai responded that it was a shame no one recognized him as the genius he was, but a dead genius is no different from any other corpse. The young man asked if Na Lan Feng wanted him dead over such a small incident, and even mobilized a military force from the city. The man says he cannot simply humiliate someone as illustrious as Princess Na Lan. Even a trivial gesture would cause a huge uproar. Releasing his martial spirit, Lin Feng got his answer about who had sent them after him. Lan Hai says it doesn't matter because he will soon be dead. Lin Feng tells those there to kill him, to come at him with everything, activating his martial spirit to the fullest. The ninjas try to hit him with their arrows, but he dodges with extreme ease. The leader of the ninjas shouts for everyone to use their martial spirits and kill him, but Feng quickly cuts off his arm. The leader screams desperately, ordering the chains to be thrown. Then, chains from all sides fly toward Feng, binding him, especially the arm wielding the sword. Lan Hai says the formation might have sealed his spirit, but it doesn't stop him from channeling power. The ninja leader says Feng cut off one of his arms, and he will return the favor. Hai agrees with him but tells him not to fail. Approaching young Lin Feng, he says he'll first cut off one of his arms, but Feng quickly throws the sword to his free hand. Lan Hai, seeing this from afar, shouts for the man to retreat, but there's no time for him to react, as Feng, in the blink of an eye, cuts him from top to bottom, killing the man with just one strike. That idiot ruined everything, said Lan Hai. Using his fan, he throws several darts at the young man, who blocks them all with his sword, and faces his opponent, who praises him, calling him a genius, saying he surpasses many of his superiors and even he wouldn't be able to subdue him without help. Feng then throws the darts back at him, hitting several ninjas and grazing Hai. He said that only 3 chains remain. The man was shocked by the extent of the young man's power. He shouted for them to maintain formation. The ninjas charged forward, trying to take advantage of him being chained, but he easily cut them down, using the chains to protect himself, and stabbing them with his sword. He sensed the presence of everyone approaching, even those coming from underground to attack him stealthily. He threw his sword at the man in the tree with the bow and arrow. Before dying, the man shouted that the boy had discarded his sword, and fell to the ground like a sack of trash. The formation was quickly broken by Feng. Lan Hai charged at him confidently, thinking he was unarmed, attacking with all his strength. His hand was blocked by something. It was Lin Feng's powerful martial spirit, which tore off his opponent's hand with a single bite. Feng quickly turned and grabbed him by the neck. Desperate, the man said he was only following Na Lan's orders. The young man replied that he knew. This gave the man a brief glimmer of hope, but it disappeared when Feng used the same phrase. A dead dog is just a dog. He tightened his grip on the man's neck, and the man screamed in desperation. Feng's spirit consumed Lan Hai from the inside out. The scene became a true massacre, with bodies scattered everywhere. Turning his back, the protagonist said that Lin Feng would sooner or later regret what she had done. He left the area to avoid being found. A short while later, far from where he had been, Feng continued meditating to increase his power. He felt a sharp pain in his chest that caused his spirit to disperse. He tried to reactivate his spirit, but it felt as though it had abandoned him. He collapsed face first to the ground. He knew he would continue to suffer like that until he awakened his spirit, and he would rather restart his life than endure such humiliation. Did it work? He asked himself as he floated. It felt as if he were in another dimension when he saw a book slightly above him. He wondered if that was his martial spirit. It was the heavenly book spirit. He approached the book, held the heavenly book, and declared that from now on, he would call it the celestial spirit. Meanwhile, back in the city, a man said that, including Qiu Lan, one more participant was needed to complete the 8, and he needed the spot. They told him to keep dreaming because Feng Qian was at the 9th level and stronger than the others, making the spot practically his. Confidently, he said the last spot was his, and that the pathetic group didn't have the courage to fight him, but they could try if they wanted to, though they'd only get beaten. One of the young men in the crowd said he was even more arrogant than they said. Someone then told them to stop, drawing everyone's attention. Emerging from the crowd, Lin Feng appeared, surprising everyone. The young man asked if he was the one who told them to stop. Calmly, Feng replied that he was. The crowd around them, unfamiliar with Feng's power, wondered if he had any idea what he was doing. The young man, activating his power, said he couldn't tell if Feng was brave or just stupid. Charging at the hero, he said that since Feng wanted to compete for the last spot, he would stop his cultivation. In the blink of an eye, Feng cut him down with his sword. As Feng Qian fell among the crowd, everyone was shocked by the protagonist's power. Turning his back on him, Lin Feng said he talked too much. He walked away and entered the venue where the tournament would take place. Inside, the seated participants whispered among themselves, wondering who the arrogant boy was who had defeated Qian with a single strike. While no one seemed to recognize him, a young woman quickly did. She stood in front of them and said she wanted to participate in the tournament. One of the seated participants stood up, asking who he thought he was to address Qiu Lan that way. He charged at Lin Feng, but with a single strike, Feng severed the man's hand. As the man screamed in despair, staring at his severed hand on the floor, Feng grabbed him by the neck. Lifting him in front of the other participants, Feng asked what was the point of allowing such trash to compete. Then he threw him out of the temple. Everyone outside, seeing Wu Xiao being tossed out like garbage, was stunned. Feng Qian said it was madness since Wu Xiao surpassed him in power, yet he was no match for Feng. Inside, Feng asked if anyone had any objections. Jumping in front of him, the woman said he was definitely good enough, and she asked Qian if he was interested in taking the remaining spot. He quickly accepted the invitation. She then asked Lin Feng to accompany her, taking him to a more secluded area. She asked if he intended to participate in the tournament in his current state, and he questioned her meaning, as he didn't understand what she was implying. She responded that he had reached the soul layer cultivation and was therefore stronger than anyone in his category, but that wasn't enough against an entire clan. Many had called him trash, but over time, he surpassed the geniuses, proving everyone wrong, and now they all wanted his head. He asked what she suggested, and she replied that if he didn't mind, he could wear a mask, to which Feng agreed. Placing the mask on him, she explained that disguising himself could help avoid numerous problems. She concluded by saying the mask suited him well and that, after the tournament, many women in Yanzhou City would fall in love with him. She then thought to herself that the Lin family would never imagine the one they expelled was stealing the spotlight from Lin Qian in this tournament. As expected of a tournament organized by the ruler of Yanzhou, dawn had barely broken, and the event was already bustling with activity. A vendor remarked that the event was meant to assess the strengths and weaknesses of the younger generation and advised the lady not to miss it. At that moment, all the participants passed by in a line. The woman leading them mentioned that the governor's mansion was just ahead. The enormous mansion stood out before them. They then entered the mansion. Feng thought that the mansion of a city governor, in his previous life, was as luxurious as a palace. While one of the young participants was amazed by the sight, the guide remarked that such splendor wasn't worth being astonished over. A man among the crowd shouted, introducing himself as Lan Xiong, and on behalf of all Yangzhou, welcomed the young participants. He explained that the purpose of the tournament was to assess the city's disciples and that the rules were simple. A fight would end when someone surrendered or was incapacitated. Present at the event were the head of the Gu family from the east, Gu Chang, the head of the Lin family from the west, Lin Ba Dao, the head of the Wen family from the south, Wen Ring Yu, and the organizer of the smaller clans from the north, Jiu Ran. Lin Ba Dao understood Lan Xiong's strategy, suspecting that the tournament was meant to weaken the clans. His daughter asked what he meant by that. He replied that, in the end, it would all come down to kill or be killed. But who would dare assassinate a member of the Na Lan family? Lan Xiong held a list in his hand with the names of all participants and declared that he would be responsible for organizing the matchups, asking if anyone objected to the decision. All the family heads agreed with the idea. As the governor's representative, he thanked them for their trust. As Feng Qian said they had been deceived, Qiu Ran told him to stay quiet. The elder announced that the first brackets would follow an elimination format. The loser is out of the tournament, and the winner advances. On the main stage, Now Lan Feng would face Wen Xian. On the eastern stage, Gu Yun would fight Lin Wu. On the southern stage, Lin Yu would battle Wen Feng. On the western stage, Now Lan Zhu would fight Feng Qian. On the northern stage, Duel Ming would face Gu Qian. In total, there were 5 stages, allowing 10 competitors to fight simultaneously, with 40 participants in total. Thus, there would be 4 rounds. Wen Xian was unlucky, as he had to face Now Lan Feng in the first round. While he wasn't weak in power, his elimination was certain. Lin Wu was quite powerful, having reached the 9th Qi coding level, making him a strong candidate to win the eastern stage battle. Lin Qian told his father that the man named Duel Ming seemed familiar. As predicted by the audience, Wen Xian surrendered without even exchanging blows with Now Lan Feng. On the eastern stage, Lin Wu emerged victorious. On the southern stage, Wen Feng claimed victory. On the western stage, Feng Qian came out as the winner, and on the northern stage, Duel Ming faced Gu Qing. Gu Qing pondered about who he would like to face, believing he could defeat Duel Ming. The family head told him to stop wasting time. He agreed with the head, and told Duel Ming to surrender, as the fight would be a waste of time. He added that once the fight began, he wouldn't allow surrender. Duel Ming replied that Gu Qing should surrender before he changed his mind. Feng Qian was glad he wasn't in Gu Qing's place. Duel Ming's words infuriated Gu Qing. The family head told him to grant the young man's wish to fight. He charged forward, using his raging python fist. Calmly, with a single strike, Duel Ming severed his hand. Gu Qing panicked at what had happened, but it didn't stop there. In mere seconds, Duel Ming drove his sword into Gu Qing's chest. Lying on the ground, Gu Qing wondered how it had happened. As his soul left his body, Duel Ming remained calm. The audience was stunned by Duel Ming's power level. The family head shouted in rage that he had killed Gu Qing. He rose furiously from his seat. Duel Ming asked if the head thought he would just stand still while his opponent killed him. He replied that Duel Ming had sealed his fate and that he wouldn't forget him. The young man warned all Gu family members that he would kill anyone who stood in his way. The crowd wondered who this arrogant young man was. The family head wanted him dead, and one participant remarked that fighting him would lead to a miserable death. The first round concluded soon after, with 20 participants eliminated in total. A woman advised the young man to fight only battles he could win. If victory seemed uncertain, he should surrender. But it seemed he didn't heed her advice, and when he went to battle Duo Ming, he declared he would defeat him for the prestige of the Na Lan clan. He activated his spirit, confident of his victory. He then used the Divine Fist technique. This was the unique spirit of the Na Lan clan. He charged at Duo Ming with full force, calling him arrogant as he unleashed a punch. A massive explosion formed, creating a shockwave. The young man laughed, saying his punch had landed perfectly. Amid the explosion, Duo Ming emerged, telling him to die, and hurled his sword at his opponent. The blade struck him squarely in the forehead. The sight of the young man lying dead with a sword embedded in his forehead left the city governor horrified. She asked how he dared to kill a member of the Na Lan family. He replied that she was the one who set the tournament rules, so other participants could die, but not Na Lan family members. Uneasy, she told him to pray that his identity wasn't discovered. Everyone was shocked by how calmly Duo Ming took lives. A pause was announced, but the third round was set to begin shortly. The head of one of the families stared intently at Duo Ming. Meanwhile, one participant thought it was a waste of time, likening the event to a circus performance. In the third round, the first fight was Duo Ming versus Gu Yan. A man instructed the young Gu Yan to kill Duo Ming. Facing each other, tension filled the air. Gu Yan said Duo Ming was a disgrace to martial artists, and that if he wanted to surrender, now was the time. Calmly, Duo Ming replied that he didn't need encouragement, and would give his opponent a chance for revenge. The young man began walking toward him with a smile on his face. "The distance between us is 10 feet. Do you know what that means?" he asked. With a mocking smile, his opponent told him to explain. With a demonic gaze, Duo Ming responded that it meant his opponent was already dead. He activated his ability Spiritual Awakening, 8 absurd dragon flames. The flames engulfed the entire arena. This surprised the tournament organizer. A young man of his level using such a technique was unexpected. Everyone seemed to think Duo Ming had lost the battle. His opponent continued smiling, flying above and observing the inferno. Duo Ming emerged from the flames, surprising his opponent by surviving with his soul-coating technique. As he stepped out of the flames, brushing himself off as if cleaning his clothes, he hurled his sword at incredible speed toward his opponent. An explosion erupted in the sky. As the explosion subsided, it became clear the young man had managed to stop the sword. He asked if Duo Ming had truly abandoned his weapon. Laughing, he said Duo Ming was in a hurry to die, bursting into laughter again. But Duo Ming appeared behind him. Striking him in the back, Duo Ming sent him crashing to the ground from a great height. The young man wondered if Duo Ming was trained in hand-to-hand combat. Duo Ming landed beside him. When his opponent tried to use his ability Dragon Flame's second form, Extreme Flame Barrier, before he could even finish activating it, Duo Ming punched him square in the face with full force. The punch sent the young man flying, dragging him across the ground. Getting up, enraged after the blow, he asked how Duo Ming dared to do such a thing. Using his ability Dragon Flame's third form, Ember Storm, he told Duo Ming to die. Flames swirled around him, and generated a massive explosion that covered the entire arena. Amidst the attack, the young man said he would end it all with his Dragon Flame's fourth form, Dragon Flame Binding Flow, but before he could finish, Duo Ming appeared behind him. A colossal explosion followed, destroying even the arena itself. Some were terrified by the magnitude of the explosion, while others were thrilled, thinking Duo Ming had been defeated. As the smoke cleared, the crowd gasped at the sight. Duo Ming stood tall, his hand covered in blood, while the head of the Gu family was stunned by what he saw. There was Duo Ming standing, while Gu Yen lay shattered and dead on the ground. The head of the Gu family declared that Duo Ming would die that day. Another man objected, saying the Gu family head was going too far, reminding him this was the Yangzhou tournament. Everyone was astonished to see the genius Gu Yen defeated by the underestimated Duo Ming, who had now proven himself to be one of the strongest participants. Now Lin Feng would face Wen Jiang next, while Lin Qian had already secured her place in the final. The host announced the opening of the fourth round of the tournament. Duo Ming would face Qiu Lan. "The fun begins now," said the man. In the match between Lin Feng and Wen Jiang, she told him to surrender because his skills were poor. Calmly, he replied that his cultivation level surpassed hers, so she should surrender. Their battle began. She used her ability Arrogant Divine Fist, while he countered with Celestial Flowing Blades, Moon Destruction. The two clashed fiercely. An elder remarked that only the Divine Fist that turned golden could be called the perfect spiritual Divine Fist. Wen Jiang emerged with a bleeding hand, while now Lin Feng remained calm and composed. Wen Jiang had mastered the second stage of soul coding, and his cultivation level was higher than Na Lin Feng's. However, throughout the battle, she had only used her Arrogant Divine Fist spirit. Each of her attacks forced Wen Jiang to retreat, a pattern that repeated until he reached his limit and surrendered. The crowd marveled at the sheer power of the governor's family. The tournament host announced the start of the final round. He called all three remaining participants to the main stage, stating the last person standing would be the winner. The audience debated who would win the final round. Some favored Lin Feng, others Lin Qian, but no one mentioned Duo Ming. Meanwhile, Lin Qian only wanted revenge for everything the two had put him through. Na Lin Feng praised Duo Ming, saying that if he was willing to join the Na Lin clan, she would forgive him and even mentor him. Mockingly, he asked how she could mentor him. She responded that she would personally teach him and that he should understand how precious such an opportunity was. He was the first to have the honor of such an offer. A voice from above, laughing, said that Na Lin Feng was unbelievable. Descending into the arena, a man appeared and said he couldn't understand where she got so much arrogance, while flaunting such ridiculous cultivation. She recognized him as Bai Yuan Hao. He continued, saying she was nothing more than a servant of the imperial city, but apparently, she had crowned herself a princess. Shouting, she told him to shut up. Calmly, he asked if she wasn't happy about being called a servant. Angrily, she said he was nothing more than a dog. Laughing, he asked if she was admitting to being a servant then. The governor shouted, saying it took courage to speak about the Na Lin family like that, and asked if he was so eager to die. The young man, still laughing, changed his expression and told the governor to shut his mouth. He said the governor was just a man with delusions of grandeur and that, with a single word, his entire family could be wiped out. That statement enraged the governor, who challenged him to carry out his threat. He activated his power and prepared to attack the young man, but then, his daughter interrupted, asking to handle the situation herself. Na Lin Feng asked the man why he wasn't in the imperial city and what he was doing in Yangzhou. He quickly replied that he had come to collect her family's debt. He turned to Duo Ming, telling him to leave the stage, as it didn't concern him. Duo Ming, in turn, asked who he thought he was to give him orders. The young man told Qiu Lan, the tournament organizer, that the boy didn't seem so great since he couldn't even listen properly. She told Duo Ming not to challenge her brother, as he wasn't a match for his strength. Calmly, Duo Ming said it was too soon to determine what he could or couldn't do. Qiu Yuan Hao was surprised that someone from such a small city dared to speak to him without fear. The governor asked if he and his sister belonged to the Qiu family. Gritting his teeth, Yuan Hao confirmed that they were part of the Chiu family. At that time, the Chiu family was wealthy, with talented members who possessed powerful martial spirits. They quickly rose in power and prestige. But they had never expected Governor Na Lan Xiong to be so dishonorable. Afraid of their power, he assembled an army to annihilate the Chiu family. After finishing the story, the governor was furious and told him to shut up. Mockingly, the young man asked if the governor would kill him if he didn't stop. He advised the governor to stay calm if he wanted his family to survive longer. Otherwise, they would be expelled from Yangzhou. The governor hesitated, uncertain if the young man truly had such influence. The governor's daughter then told by Yuan Hao that he couldn't touch her. He replied that while killing the governor might be impossible, he would humiliate him to restore the glory of the Chiu family. He then said that the 3 tournament participants should fight him. Duel Ming said he understood his purpose but told him to wait until the tournament ended, as his family drama wasn't his concern. Chiu Yuan Hao replied that he could kill Duel Ming at any time, and if he didn't want to leave, he could stay and die. He then awakened his spirit, activating his invincible golden body ability. He declared that the so-called genius Na Lan Feng continued to overestimate herself, and told her to come and face him. Using her arrogant divine fist ability, she charged at him. He countered with 5 elements shockwave to block her attack. A mild shockwave rippled across the stage. In the midst of the attack, she was startled by something she saw. Then, another intense explosion occurred. Lin Qian wondered if he had truly surpassed soul coding. As the smoke dissipated, Na Lan Feng appeared, staggering from the blows she had received. Mocking her, the young man asked how the genius was feeling. He said they would need to attack him together, and he would show them the place where trash like them belong. Calmly, Duel Ming remarked that his power was only surprising within Yangzhou. Chiu Yuan Hao said Duel Ming was bold and, as a servant fighting for his sister, he wouldn't kill him but would silence him. Servant this, servant that. You really enjoy servitude, don't you? Duel Ming asked. He then charged at his opponent. Yuan Hao said Duel Ming needed a good beating to learn his place. The two clashed, one with his sword and the other defending with his bracelet. Yuan Hao declared that trash would never harm him. Duel Ming sarcastically asked if he was sure about that. He then used his sword force ability, attacking his opponent with a strike aimed at his neck. But Yuan quickly managed to defend himself against the attack. The protagonist kept a smile on his face, as if everything was going according to plan. In the blink of an eye, he leaped upward, preparing a powerful strike, causing a massive explosion of energy and a tremendous shockwave. As the intense light dimmed, it became clear that Yuan Hao had once again blocked the attack, but he quickly retreated far away from Duel Ming. Duel Ming asked why Yuan Hao was retreating, especially after claiming he wouldn't be hurt. Yuan Hao admitted he had underestimated Duel Ming, but arrogantly added that he was little more than a dog and that one strike would be enough to kill him. Duel Ming called him stupid, saying that if being a genius was as simple as talking, then Yuan Hao was undoubtedly in the right category. Na Lan Feng thought to herself that if she could convince Duel Ming to join the Na Lan family, he would undoubtedly be a great asset. She approached the young man, admitting she had underestimated him and stating that with his power, he could earn the respect of the Na Lan family. She invited him to join and asked what he thought of the idea. Bluntly, he told her not to bother him with such nonsense, attacking her with incredible power. She quickly dodged his attack, but as she did so, Duel Ming launched another strike. This time, she couldn't avoid it, and the blow landed squarely. Another massive explosion erupted on the stage. As the dust settled, it was clear she was on the verge of falling off the stage. He asked if that level of power was what she thought qualified her to instruct him. Turning to Yuan Hao, he stated that he hadn't intended to interfere with his revenge but found him arrogant, and questioned if he truly thought himself so skilled. He added that Yuan Hao had claimed Na Lan Feng was arrogant, but he was behaving just like her. Walking toward his opponent, Duel Ming declared that this trash would learn what it truly meant to be a genius. He activated his martial spirit to its fullest extent. With each step toward Yuan Hao, the latter grew increasingly desperate. Feeling the pressure, Yuan Hao knew he had to act quickly. Duel Ming prepared for his attack. His opponent used the invincible golden body technique, but Duel Ming simply unleashed his slash ability, causing numerous cuts on Yuan Hao and launching him into the air. Pointing his sword upward, he hurled it rapidly. The speed of Duel Ming's attacks shocked Yuan Hao, who, using his last bit of strength, declared he wouldn't lose. Yet another massive explosion erupted, creating an intense shockwave. A young woman ran toward her brother, asking if he was okay. He replied that it was just a minor injury, and that his plan had failed, so it was best for them to leave. She agreed, and they quickly fled. Our hero then turned to Lin Qian, and stated that now only they were left to continue the tournament. But she said that wouldn't be necessary, internally questioning who the young man behind the mask was. Duel Ming, seemingly unfazed by her words, began preparing his attack. Her father shouted for her to retreat. Startled by Duel Ming's speed, She barely managed to channel power into her hand to block the strike. Face to face with her, Duel Ming declared that she was going to die. Her father rushed toward them to protect his daughter, but Duel Ming was undeterred and continued his powerful attack. The elder managed to save her from the strike, asking if she was okay, to which she confirmed she was. The protagonist declared that she had violated the tournament's rules. She should have left the stage, as she lacked the necessary power and required an elder's intervention to survive. Furious, the elder called him arrogant, and said they would now see who he really was. He unleashed a powerful strike against the young man, who didn't even try to block it, allowing it to destroy his mask. As the mask crumbled, Duel Ming remained calm. Unlike the elder and Lin Qian, who were stunned by his revealed identity, they were shocked and shivered as they realized the one behind the mask was Lin Feng. Meanwhile, the members of the Lin family were in disbelief, never imagining such a twist even in their wildest dreams. Lin Feng now understood how all her men had been defeated. Frightened, Lin Qian asked how he had become so powerful. He asked if she was surprised, reminding her how he had always been scorned by the family. The audience wondered how the young man once called the Lin family's trash could possess such power after being cast out for his supposed weakness. Lin Feng continued, saying that Lin Qian was nothing more than an arrogant, pretentious fool who used her family's power to do whatever she wanted. He added that Lin Ba Dao and the Great Elder, even together, couldn't compare to his father's power, which is why they sought the help of the Honorable Elder. He asked if they hadn't assured the Honorable Elder that Lin Qian's potential outweighed the family's legacy. But as everyone has witnessed, Lin Qian is nothing compared to me. So how do you feel? Ashamed or perhaps regretful? He asked. That infuriated Lin Ba Dao, who ordered the young man to shut up. But our hero didn't stop and said that Lin Ba Dao had disrespected Lin family traditions, stolen the position of family head, betrayed his own brother, and turned his claws against his own family, making Lin Ba Dao the true bastard. The family head then requested the city governor's permission to eliminate the Lin family's trash. The governor responded that it was an internal family matter, so he had no objections. Following the governor's words, Lin Feng declared that the tournament was a farce designed to eliminate talented members of other families, and he called the governor a joke. He turned to Lin Qian, saying that while she once wanted to kill him, now it was her turn to die. Quickly, he used an ability to hurl his sword toward her. The attack cracked the stage under its immense pressure. Calmly, Lin Ba Dao stopped the attack and asked if Lin Feng really thought that would work. Our hero smirked slyly. He used his fleeting shadow ability. The governor noticed what he intended and rushed to stop him. But in the blink of an eye, Feng appeared behind Lin Feng. Placing his sword at the young woman's neck, he mocked Lin Ba Dao's earlier words, saying, "Well, it worked." The governor asked how he dared. Rushing to the stage, he demanded Lin Feng surrender and released the young woman. Lin Feng warned that if anyone took another step, his daughter would die. He pressed the sword slightly against her neck, drawing a trickle of blood. This enraged the governor. Calmly, Feng asked if the governor really thought he would let the girl go and declared that if anyone approached, she wouldn't be the first to die. As Lin Ba Dao attempted to creep closer, Lin Feng reminded everyone of his earlier words. Anyone who moved, the girl would die. Quickly, the governor redirected his attention to the Lin family head. Lin Ba Dao was astonished at Lin Feng's cleverness in taking Lin Feng hostage, leaving everyone too afraid to act. The governor asked what assurances Lin Feng could offer. The protagonist simply asked if he wanted his daughter to die. Lin Xiong was powerless in the situation. He didn't even try to negotiate, fearing that Lin Feng would kill his daughter out of sheer hatred. Without a word, Lin Feng and his captives slowly retreated. Due to the governor's hesitation, no one pursued him. All they could do was hope and pray for the girl's safe return. In that moment, the Gu, Nalan, and Qiu Yuan Hao families cursed one individual. However, the Lin family's feelings were conflicted. Lin Feng could have been the pride of the family, but they had cast him out. For better or worse, Lin Feng left his mark on Yangzhou during that tournament. 10 long days passed. Lin Feng walked through a mountainous valley. Several horses trotted toward him. Spotting a blood-red horse, he was surprised. The leader of the riders commanded the troop to halt. Lin Feng quickly realized there were about 30 riders. They were the renowned Qi, the blood-red riders. He recognized Lu Fei, escorted by the riders, as the leader asked if she permitted them a rest after days of riding. When she noticed Feng's presence, she was surprised. The leader noticed her reaction and asked if something was wrong. She replied that he was from the same sect. The man then observed Lin Feng silently. Lu Fei, nudging her horse, told the group to move on. The rider confirmed and urged his horse forward. As he left, he kept an eye on Lin Feng. Feng pondered how Lu Fei seemed to hold a high rank even among the blood-red riders. In contrast, he had only himself. He needed to participate in the sect's internal competition. That way, he could become an inner disciple. Arriving at the Star Pavilion, he found Bei Lao, who was nearly asleep in his chair. Surprised to see him back, Bei Lao asked why he had returned. Feng explained he was looking for abilities to enhance his agility and new martial techniques. Bei Lao told him to head to the second floor. The young man asked him to keep track of the time limit. The elder said there was no need to rush. Lin Feng could stay as long as he wanted, as long as he didn't invade the third floor. The young man thanked the elder for his trust. A brief explanation of the rules of the Yunhai sect highlighted that free access to the second floor was restricted to inner disciples and those at the soul level. Those who didn't meet these requirements had their time on the floor limited. Bei Lao considered allowing the young man access to the third floor if there was no chance that his cultivation would develop improperly. The ringing of bells, a total of 8, had changed the history of the Yunhai sect. How could this small pavilion possibly hinder him? The young disciples on the first floor wondered who the external disciple was who dared to ascend to the second floor. It's important to understand that both skills and techniques are categorized into hierarchical levels: yellow, profound, earth, and celestial, each further subdivided into lower, intermediate, and upper ranks. Thus, the first floor of the pavilion was stocked with yellow-level materials, while the second floor offered much more advanced skills and techniques. Returning to our protagonist, he thought to himself that he had expected this floor to have fewer books and less activity from the disciples. He reached the agility skills section and began searching for something that appealed to him. He read about the pure energy skill, a profound level technique. Absorb the energy around you and use it as your own. This technique provides greater control and regulation for the user. After reading, he was certain this was the type of skill he was looking for. He then moved to the martial techniques section. He read through numerous books, but none of the techniques caught his interest. One book, however, grabbed his attention. 8 Desolation Palm Strikes, a lower profound level technique. When fully developed, this technique can fill the sky with an almost infinite number of palm strikes. Lin Feng knew that, given his situation, he needed new martial techniques. A swordsmanship technique also caught his attention. Nirvana Sword, an intermediate level technique, requires the possession of a sword spirit, talent, and knowledge of sword force. The user must set aside their desires and emotions. Lin Feng's celestial spirit was perfectly suited for this technique. At that moment, someone demanded he hand over the scroll. It was the inner disciple Li Lin who spoke. An external disciple, Xin Chen, then said that he had already chosen that book. Li Lin asked how an external disciple dared refuse him. Xin Chen replied that he had heard Li Lin abused his position as an inner disciple but was one of the weakest in the sect, adding that he would make him pay during the next exam. Everyone present stopped to watch the conflict unfold. Li Lin knew Xin Chen had the highest ranking among external disciples and wasn't aware of any other external disciple who could compete with him. Afraid he had intimidated the wrong person, Li Lin awkwardly smiled and said it was just a misunderstanding. Everyone laughed at him for being intimidated by an external disciple. Even Lin Feng couldn't help but let out a small laugh at Li Lin's humiliation. Angry at being humiliated, Li Lin asked Lin Feng if he wanted him to halt his cultivation. Without saying a word, our hero simply stared at him. Li Lin ground his teeth in frustration. Lin Feng thought that he had already chosen enough skills and techniques, and decided it was time to leave. Li Lin became even angrier that an external disciple dared to ignore him. Lin Feng asked if he hadn't just been humiliated by an external disciple. Li Lin replied that it seemed Lin Feng didn't value his life. Like the wind, Lin Feng passed by him, calmly saying he would remember him, and that during the Sect's exam, he should meet him in the arena of life and death. Li Lin was left wondering how Lin Feng had passed him so effortlessly. The onlookers whispered among themselves, amazed that an inner disciple had been humiliated twice by external disciples and had even been challenged. To save face, Li Lin declared that he would meet Lin Feng in the arena. Xin Chen asked Lin Feng's name, noting that anyone who could remain on that floor had to be strong, yet he didn't know him. The protagonist introduced himself, adding that it was normal for Shen not to know him. The young man was shocked, realizing that the Lin Feng he knew was the disgrace of the Lin family. It didn't seem possible for someone at the soul level to remain weak. Xin Chen remarked that even among external disciples, the gap in strength between them was vast, like an ocean. Furthermore, he would soon become an inner disciple. Smiling, Lin Feng commented that Shen seemed confident enough to claim the title of second external disciple. Considering no one dared challenge the first, Shen replied. Lin Feng then challenged him, saying that if he was so great, he should remain on the floor after the time limit expired. Shen responded that such a challenge wouldn't scare him, as even he wasn't exempt from the time limit rules. With a sarcastic look, Lin Feng asked if that was really how things were. Then he proposed something to Xin Chen, saying he wanted to stay on that floor and exceed the standard time limit, and Shen was ranked first among the outer disciples. So, joining me would be natural, wouldn't it? Lin Feng asked. Wondering if Feng had lost his mind challenging the pavilion's rules, Shen asked if this was some kind of joke. Calmly, Our hero replied that all Shin needed to do was stay and find out. Shin didn't say anything and remained there, while the incense stick marking their time limit burned steadily closer to the end. He wanted to see how long Lin Feng could keep up his act. Before the incense burned out, Shin said he wouldn't die there with him, and wanted to see what Lin Feng would tell the guardian for overstaying. As Shin walked toward the exit, the protagonist called him a coward. But that didn't change Shin's mind, and he quickly left to avoid punishment. On the first floor, everything was quiet. When Shin arrived, the elder told him to be more careful because he had almost exceeded the time limit. Shin nodded but thought to himself that if he had almost exceeded the time, then Lin Feng definitely had. Meanwhile, the protagonist came down the stairs. He approached Bei Lao, showing him the materials he had selected. The elder looked them over and commented that all of them were difficult to master but believed in Feng's potential to handle them all. Meanwhile, Shin was grinding his teeth in frustration. Bei Lao was explaining the techniques when Shin, furious, asked if Lin Feng hadn't exceeded the time limit. Calmly, the elder replied that he was aware. Shin asked why Lin Feng wasn't being punished. Bei Lao responded that he had been at the pavilion for many years, knew how things worked, and asked who Shin thought he was to dictate how the place should be run. Shin angrily asked how the guardian of the pavilion dared to disregard the Sect's rules and declared he deserved to be punished. Lin Feng was amazed by Shin's stupidity. Calmly, Bei Lao raised his hand, preparing his ability. He cast his spell at Shin, pinning him to the wall as if tearing the spirit from his body. Everyone present felt the aura of a profound layer. Trembling with fear, Shin realized the hard way that the pavilion guardian was, in fact, a profound layer master. Shin muttered that he would leave. As he walked to the exit, he told Feng to meet him at the Sect exam, where no one would be there to protect him. He stormed out furiously, while the protagonist remained calm, as if nothing had happened. Bei Lao commented that it had been a long time since he'd exerted himself that much and instructed Shuiyu to take his post. Then he flew off on his massive bird. Lin Feng was once again impressed by the bird's speed and understood that this was the power of a profound layer. Quickly, Shuiyu sat down in the elder's place. Meanwhile, a little farther away, at the highest peak of the Yunhai sect, a meeting was taking place. A man told Fei that he would carefully consider her request, and assured her she didn't need to worry. She sighed, a mix of fear and confidence. She told her uncle Nangong that he knew her father wasn't selfish, and was only doing it for the Snow Moon Kingdom. She said they would ensure the sect of Yunhai regained control and become its pillars of support. My father trained with me and is like my brother. If he stayed in the sect, I would have given him my position as patriarch. But as the patriarch of Yunhai, the sect must always come first. I cannot let personal relationships interfere, said Nangong. A man asked if he was disobeying the emperor's orders. Nangong replied that he had never spoken of disobedience. On the contrary, he fully supported them and would send many exceptional disciples. Then he asked the man who he thought he was to give orders to the patriarch, and told him to fetch his father to learn how to do his job properly. The young man, furious, declared he would report this to his father. Calmly, Nangong told him to do as he pleased. Someone then entered, saying they'd heard that little Fei had returned. The young woman stood up quickly upon recognizing her grandfather, Bei Lao, and ran to him. The elder remarked that she had grown much taller. He asked how her father was. She looked a bit sad and said he was still in Broken Edge City. The elder said he had someone in mind for the institution and was certain her father, Tsanglan, would like him. She asked if it was just one person, and he nodded in confirmation. He explained that when her father set out on his own and became who he is today, she should know that quantity doesn't equal quality. Fei asked who the person was, and the elder replied that she would find out when the time was right. He told her to send her men away and promised to take the chosen one to the imperial city after the sect exam. She agreed with her grandfather. Meanwhile, at the isolated peak, under the skyline, Lin Feng continued training with unwavering focus. Even though the energy purification skill didn't have any special effects, it stabilized his foundation and strengthened his internal energy by 2 layers. He then stood up and used his 8 Desolation Palm Strikes technique, attacking the wall in front of him. The results seemed to satisfy him, as the technique had become stronger. This technique had a total of 8 layers. The 5th layer was already powerful, but reaching the 6th signified extreme talent, and only a genius could attain the 7th. Profound level skills weren't easy to master, but for Lin Feng, it was a breeze. Once he awakened his spirit, Lin Feng's comprehension and calculation speeds reached new heights. It took Lin Feng just 1 day to reach the 7th layer. He was only 1 step away from the 8th. He moved on to the next technique, declaring it was her turn. The Nirvana sword technique consisted of 3 strikes. Life-taking sword. Unsheathing the sword takes lives. Sword of death, 1 step, 1 death. Sword of solitude. Total annihilation, leaving silence behind. Lin Feng then awakened his spirit, training far more effectively and learning with greater ease. With a single strike, the isolated peak was split in half by his power. Chunks of ice slowly began to fall. The protagonist had done this using just one sword technique. He wondered how powerful the other two moves must be, as this one had destruction comparable to the highest level of his palm strikes. He heard footsteps approaching. Quickly, he asked who was there. It was the young Lu Fei, who reminded him that the last time they met, he stole her territory and humiliated her, so today she would have her revenge. Having recently reached the soul layer, Lu Fei confidently declared that if Lin Feng knelt and begged for forgiveness, she might let him go. The young man asked if she had really told him to kneel. Turning away, he told her to leave, as he didn't want her to embarrass herself. Furious, she prepared her attack and asked if he really thought she would be the one humiliated. With her bow in hand, she said it was a gift from her father, and she would use Lin Feng for target practice. She fired, creating another explosion within the peak, but the shot missed Lin Feng. She remarked that he was lucky and decided to give him another chance. Our hero replied that he didn't need luck. Preparing for another attack, she declared that his life was about to end. Lin Feng used the 8 desolation palm strikes, but Lu Fei quickly dodged it. Jumping behind him, ready to attack, he noticed her presence. She fired an arrow at Lin Feng, but when it hit him, his body turned to smoke. In the blink of an eye, he appeared beside her, striking and causing another dust cloud. But she managed to dodge again and wondered how far he had advanced that technique. Lin Feng's arm became trapped in the rocks. She then activated her spirit awakening, creating multiple bows around her. Each bow held 3 arrows. Lin Feng remained stuck against the wall. She activated her meteor fall technique, and all the arrows shot toward him. He tore a boulder from the wall and used it as a shield. But the arrows caused a massive explosion, causing part of the isolated peak to collapse. Feng climbed atop the rubble, reflecting on the power of her arrows. While she wondered how he had grown so strong, he used his technique, forcing Lu Fei to keep dodging. As she evaded every attack he launched at her, she was impressed, recognizing that he had reached the 7th layer of the palm strikes, and wondered how he hadn't surpassed the soul coding level. Lin Feng calmly walked toward her, and she furiously demanded to know what he was doing. His calm demeanor only made her more nervous. Holding another arrow in her hand, she warned that if he took one more step, she would. Feng noticed her trembling uncontrollably, and laughed loudly. He approached her, touched her face, and remarked that he had just realized how adorable she was. He added that if she really wanted the place, he would leave it for her. Quickly, he stepped aside to let her pass. He told her to try not to cause any trouble. The young woman, furious, screamed into the wind, calling him a bastard. Lin Feng felt slightly embarrassed for touching her face, but at the same time, he felt pleased about it. As he left the peak, some time later, a group of young disciples rushed past him, all moving at incredible speed. He stopped one of them and asked what was happening. The disciple replied that numerous ferocious beasts were attacking Black Wind Ridge, so most of the disciples were heading there. Lin Feng was surprised to hear that. The young man urged him to follow, saying he would show him the way. The protagonist then followed the young man. Shortly afterward, in the same place, Lu Fei arrived, trying to find Lin Feng. She noticed no one else was there and moved on. Meanwhile, at the highest peak of the Yunhai sect, at the very top, a group of men had gathered. Among them was Ling Huishan, an inner disciple of the Yunhai sect, who was impressed by the immense pressure emanating from the beasts. Other young disciples speculated that Ling Huishan aimed to secure one of the 8 officer positions. At Black Wind Ridge, the skirmish had already begun. The enraged beasts attacked the disciples, who bravely defended themselves, defeating the creatures. Elder Mo observed the battle between the disciples and the beasts. A man nearby commented that the new disciples were strong, and even the outer disciples were holding their ground. The elder replied that it was merely a horde of beasts and told them to treat it as a warm-up. The young disciples saluted Elder Mo. Suddenly, a loud explosion erupted from the battlefield. The elder's attention was drawn to it. In the midst of the smoke from the explosion was Lin Feng, who decapitated one of the beasts with a single strike. The young disciples wondered who this boy was who could kill a beast with just one blow. Elder Mo quickly recognized the young man, as the protagonist collected demonic crystals after slaying the beasts. The elder shouted for him to stop immediately. Lin Feng asked why he was being ordered to stop. The elder yelled that not only had he killed the beasts, but he had also stolen the crystals, accusing him of lacking respect for the sect. Lin Feng calmly asked him to point out the beasts he supposedly stole. Beside the elder, a man questioned how Lin Feng dared to speak to an elder that way. Mo Xie declared that if he said Lin Feng had stolen crystals, it was because he had, and there was no need to prove anything. The man thought Lin Feng needed to be cautious not to offend an inner elder so recklessly. Lin Feng said he knew the elder wanted to kill him and didn't need to fabricate any crimes, but he would need strength to do so. He wondered if the young man was foolish or something worse. Mockingly, the protagonist asked if the elder was afraid of him. Sia wondered what was wrong with the boy, and considered whether it could be that mysterious black shadow again. Deciding to test things first, he ordered He-chong to defeat the young man. He-chong agreed, exuding power as he prepared. Lin Feng called him a foolish pig. The insult enraged the man, who demanded to know what he meant. Calmly, the hero explained that Sia didn't dare attack him directly, so he had sent He-chong instead without considering the consequences. And now here he was, playing the scapegoat, all excited. So was it wrong to call him a foolish pig? He-chong began to wonder if the young man had some backing even Sia couldn't handle. Everyone there was shocked. Who was this boy who could put 2 sect elders in their place with just a few words? Lin Feng declared that he was giving them a chance to kill him, but they didn't even dare to take it, questioning what kind of elders they were. Then, he decapitated another beast. He concluded by saying that if either elder was willing to fight, he would just continue hunting demonic beasts. Both elders ground their teeth in frustration. Several beasts charged, howling with pure rage. Suddenly, Lu Fei appeared, attacking the beasts with her powerful arrows. An explosion caught her attention. It was Lin Feng battling nearby. She noticed his presence. As he stared at her, a beast emerged behind him, preparing to strike. Quickly she used her bow and arrow, shooting at the beast behind the young man, completely obliterating it. They stared at each other briefly, and Feng gave her a slight smile. Something caught the young woman's attention. Lin Feng was beginning to feel a spiritual pressure stronger than usual. A massive blue beast appeared before the two. They quickly recognized it as a Soul Layer beast. The enormous blue creature stared intently at the protagonist. Lin Feng felt something strange inside him. Coughing up strawberry juice. He wondered why he couldn't move. He quickly realized the answer. It was because of Sia. Looking at the elder, he saw him smiling with an air of confidence. People began speculating that elder Sia had done it on purpose to kill Feng. The protagonist leaped into the air, attempting to escape. Quickly, the elder used his powers, asking how the young man dared to escape and claiming it brought shame to the sect. Sia trapped Lin Feng in midair, and Feng recognized the spiritual cobra martial spirit. Lu Fei called Sia despicable and prepared an arrow. The elder looked confused. The young woman fired at the cords restraining Lin Feng, but as expected, it wasn't enough. Our hero had been careless, not expecting Lu Fei to be the only one to help him. A bird appeared in the sky, and someone reprimanded Sia for overstepping his bounds. The elder observed with disdain, letting out a low grunt of irritation and scorn. The person on the bird prepared an attack. Lin Feng was stunned by everything happening around him. Sia was forced to kneel as the ground around him shattered from the impact. The elder, both shocked and furious, wondered what kind of hellish power this was, utterly perplexed by the situation. Nearby wolves raised their heads as if terrified of the newcomer. They began howling in unison, catching Lin Feng's attention, and also drawing the attention of the guardian who had arrived on the bird. The Soul Layer beast began roaring ferociously. Bones emerged from the creature's body. Lin Feng seemed to understand what was about to happen. The beast launched an attack at the young man using its bones, but Bei Lao quickly intervened, attacking the beasts to protect the young man. All the beasts were swiftly defeated. The Soul Layer beast dissipated. The elder realized it had been an illusion technique. Meanwhile, the young onlookers were amazed by the number of hidden masters within the sect. Bei Lao released his martial spirit, creating a subtle shockwave. At that moment, the patriarch and the great elder appeared behind Sia, asking what had happened. Lu Fei quickly explained that the elder had restrained a sect disciple and sent him into the jaws of a demonic beast. Sia told the patriarch that the external disciple had stolen demonic crystals from others without fighting the beasts, thus deserving death. With his hands brimming with power, Bei Lao asked if he truly deserved to die. Rushing toward the elder, he declared he would ensure his death that day. Bei Lao struck the elder, causing him to cough up strawberry juice. The blow sent the elder hurtling into the rocks, where he collided forcefully, screaming in pain. The young onlookers whispered among themselves, wondering if this was the same elder who protected the starry pavilion. In the blink of an eye, Bei Lao disappeared from where he was, and reappeared before Sia, who was now trembling with fear. He asked the elder how the Yunhai sect could endure if elders attacked disciples without being punished. The great elder questioned whether Bei Lao was going too far. Bei Lao calmly turned to him, and replied that all this had been caused by his insolent son. The patriarch arrived and asked the reason behind all this. Bei Lao told the patriarch to step aside, declaring that he would cleanse the Yunhai sect today. Using telepathy, the patriarch pleaded with Bei Lao not to attack Sia for the sake of the sect's stability. He asked if Nangong knew who the young man was, adding that if Kung Lao were present, Sia would already be dead. Turning his back on the patriarch, Bei Lao said Nangong's senses had dulled since becoming the patriarch. Then he vanished quickly. The patriarch was shocked by what had been said. The great elder wondered what the two had discussed. Lin Feng had not been saved from the Soul Layer beast's attack and was in a trance. When he awoke and noticed his surroundings, he wondered where he was. He found himself in a vast place, surrounded by magic. Suddenly, his eyes turned blue as if he were being possessed. A giant celestial spirit appeared before him. The young man wondered if this was the beast's true form. He felt something piercing his chest. A snake emerged from within him. The snake's presence seemed to dissipate the magic surrounding Feng. The snake began to move, gradually growing larger. It transformed into an immense serpent, ready to protect our hero. The serpent attacked the beast, biting it. The beast let out an ear-piercing roar of pain, sending waves of magic rippling across the mountain. Lin Feng wondered if the serpent had swallowed the beast. The snake then returned to his chest. He felt something strange in his eyes. All the power surrounding him dissipated, causing him to lose consciousness and fall into the water. Gradually, he began sinking deeper and deeper. Some time later, he regained consciousness, slowly opening his eyes. He stood up, still staggering as dizziness overtook him. As clarity returned, his thoughts turned to his martial spirit. Then, the serpent reappeared, this time on his shoulder. A bright glow began to emanate. It was the beast reappearing beside young Lin Feng. The illusory demonic beast had transformed into his martial spirit. Now, he possessed a triple martial spirit. Could it be that his power had reached the second soul coding? It seemed that the small spiritual serpent could devour demonic beings and bind them to his control. This, in turn, enhanced Feng's power. The title of trash that had been placed on Lin Feng no longer applied to him. He had survived a disaster and emerged even more powerful. But in the young man's mind, all he could think about was revenge against Mosia. Exiting the mountain, he immediately noticed the presence of beasts. It appeared that the attacks continued. The young man closed his eyes and focused. He activated his celestial spirit, allowing him to travel through the surroundings using only his vision. The celestial spirit began circling Feng's body, completely enveloping him, turning him into an illusion. As he had suspected, he could utilize the abilities of the illusory beast. Using this power, he slipped through the hordes of beasts undetected, before launching surprise attacks and eliminating them one by one. He thought to himself that the depths of Black Wind Ridge were truly terrifying, but he couldn't waste the chance to collect more demonic crystals. While those born into privilege could become prodigies even with mediocre abilities, relying on external resources to gain power, he had no such support, and would have to depend on his own strength. He readied his sword, hearing the roars of the beasts. In the blink of an eye, he slashed the neck of one of the creatures. He continued battling several beasts, gradually dominating the entire area. After so much spilled strawberry juice, the sky darkened, and rain began to fall. It felt like a cleansing shower for Lin Feng, who had been battling beasts for 2 days straight. As he walked in search of his next challenge, he encountered something that caught his attention. It was the sovereign black python, a second soul coding level demonic beast. But this didn't intimidate the hero, who dodged the serpent's attack, causing an explosion in the process. Amid the smoke, Lin Feng used his Reaper Sword ability, striking the serpent and leaving deep gashes on its body. The protagonist was no longer playing around and activated his second soul coding, creating an aura around him. He prepared to strike with his sword. The serpent and the young man charged at each other. He attacked with his sword, but the python caught the blade in its teeth. The young man gripped the sword with both hands, and with great force, sliced the serpent in half. He drove his sword into the python, as if to ensure its death. He knew the beast horde would soon be wiped out, as the Sect's inner examination was about to begin. Elsewhere, 2 young men continued battling the beasts. One told the other to immobilize the creature, as it was a soul-coding level beast. The other asked if he could really kill it, given the powerful defense of the rhinoceros beast. Confidently, the first asked Pajun if he didn't trust him. Pajun replied that he only trusted himself. He then quickly immobilized the massive rhinoceros, and shouted for Han Man to do his part. Like a missile, Han Man charged at the beast, delivering a powerful punch that caused the creature to disintegrate on the spot. Pajun admitted that Han Man was stronger than him, and the large man said forming a team had been a great idea. Watching from afar, Lin Feng felt pleased to see his friend so strong. The young man noticed Lin Feng's presence and asked who he was, but immediately launched an attack at our hero. Han Man quickly clarified that Lin Feng was a friend of his. With just one hand and great composure, Lin Feng deflected the attack and remarked that while his senses were sharp, his attacks were weak. The big guy said he had tried to find him several times, but had no success, and even thought Lin Feng wouldn't return. Pajun was silently pondering just how strong the young man was. Lin Feng responded to his friend that he had just returned. He then complimented him, saying he was now even capable of defeating a beast of that level, showing he had improved significantly. Smiling, Han Man said he had reached the soul layer and asked what stage Lin Feng had achieved. The young man simply replied that he was doing fine. The big guy introduced Pajun to Lin Feng and said that, from now on, they would be friends. Lin Feng didn't react much and simply said he was going to collect crystals. Han Man told Feng not to mind Pejun, as he acted like that with everyone. The protagonist asked why they were still there after everyone else had left. Han Man replied that he also wanted to take the Sect exam, but staying meant they could collect more crystals, so they were taking advantage of the emptiness. He then asked if Lin Feng would take the inner exam. Lin Feng confirmed that he would and said there was still time to make it. Calling his companion, Han Man asked if he had finished collecting crystals since they couldn't delay and risk missing the exam. Pejun calmly replied that he was done and that they could leave. Han Man asked Lin Feng how strong he was. Lin Feng just nodded, saying he was strong enough. Han Man then asked if he could take down a rhinoceros beast. Lin Feng replied that he probably could. His friend said he expected no less and declared that the 3 spots would be theirs. Together, they would work hard in the Yunhai sect. Pejun asked who would be the leader since they would be working together, and Han Man responded that, obviously, Lin Feng would lead. The two exchanged a look. Pejun asked why he couldn't lead, and Han Man replied that Pejun couldn't even defeat him, so Lin Feng would naturally command. Sometime later, at the Stormy Gorge, in the arena of life and death, all the big names were gathered. The Yunhai Sect's inner exam was one of the most important annual events. For any disciple to secure one of the top 10 spots was the most honorable feat. They would gain the recognition of the entire sect and be deemed worthy of further training. Spotting Lu Fei, Han Man said he had heard she had reached the soul layer, and it seemed to be true. Smiling, he said it would be great if he could marry her. Feng asked if he could handle her. Han Man admitted he wasn't weak but didn't think he was a good enough match for her. The crowd was watching the battle on the platform. Lin Feng noticed Mosia and thought to himself that he would settle some scores during this exam. The elder felt someone watching him, but when he turned to see who it was, there was no one there anymore. On the platform, Lu Fei secured her victory, and the audience cheered for her. However, she didn't seem very happy about the win, appearing indifferent to her victory. She knew that if Lin Feng were there, he would outshine her with his immense power. Elsewhere, Bei Lao remarked that while Lu Fei was talented, she was still far from Sun Lan's level. She wouldn't be able to handle the responsibilities of her father or the pressures of moving to the imperial city, where problems arose easily and would exhaust her. He added that he would prefer to send Lin Feng to the imperial city as it would accelerate his development. Lin Feng would also be capable of assisting Sun Lan, and if fate allowed, he concluded angrily that he couldn't rest as long as Mosia was alive. Back at the arena of life and death, someone in the crowd called out to Lin Feng. It was Jing Yun, who was delighted to see him there. He greeted her with a smile. Han Man remarked that it must be fate but then asked how she hadn't seen him and only noticed Feng. She replied that she didn't recognize him. A man behind them told them to shut their damn mouths. All 3 turned to look at him. They saw a pompous young man. Han Man asked what their conversation had to do with him. The young man asked if Han Man would believe him if he said he was going to kill him. Lin Feng immediately recognized the man. They stared at each other for a moment. The young man laughed and said, "So it's the trash. Last time, you were lucky to survive. Have you grown tired of living?" Releasing a portion of his martial spirit, he questioned if Feng was tired of living. With sarcasm, Lin Feng responded that perhaps he was. The man said he had met many worthless people before, but never anyone like Lin Feng, who seemed determined to court death, and if he truly sought death, then he would grant his wish after the examination was over. Lin Feng replied that there was no need to wait until the examination ended. He would give him a chance right now. Jing Yun asked what he was doing. Han Man placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, stopping her. He told her to trust Lin Feng, as he was always full of surprises. The man who claimed he would kill the protagonist was captivated when he saw Lu Fei and declared that she would be his. Meanwhile, our hero walked toward the arena of life and death. A man descending the stairs greeted him, but Lin Feng ignored him and walked past without responding. Seeing Feng heading toward the arena of life and death, the man was stunned. It was the first time someone had gone there today. The crowd wondered aloud if this wasn't the same person who had been swallowed by the demonic beast, and how he could still be alive. As Lin Feng stepped onto the stage, visible to everyone, he shocked Mosia and the patriarch. A man sitting nearby laughed loudly, surprised that Lin Feng had survived everything that had happened. Yu Hao asked Lu Fei how that piece of trash dared to step into the arena of life and death. She turned to the arena to see who he was talking about. Upon seeing Lin Feng there, she was overjoyed that he was alive. Yu Hao saw an opportunity. He declared that he had spared Feng last time but would now challenge him and kill him. She thought to herself that although he possessed a sword-type spirit, he had remained stagnant at the first soul-coding layer for the past year. While Yu Hao spoke about how he only needed to signal to begin, Lin Feng shouted, telling Yu Hao to get his ass onto the stage. The crowd erupted in excitement. Yu Hao was taken aback by the boldness, but then he smiled and said he had planned to let Feng live a little longer, but since he insisted on dying, calmly, Lin Feng replied that he wasn't in a rush. He then called Li Lin to join him on the stage as well. From below, Li Lin wondered what Lin Feng was planning, because if Feng dared to challenge him, it meant he had reached the soul coding level. However, he was relieved that Feng had also challenged Yu Hao, whose destructive sword spirit was far more powerful than Feng. When Yu Hao reached the stage, he asked why Feng had also challenged Li Lin. Feng replied that both of them would fight him at the same time. Elder Mosia remarked that if Feng grew stronger, the consequences would be disastrous, as he would show no respect for the sect. Watching from afar, Bei Lao smiled and said none of them were keeping a low profile. Back on the stage, Yu Hao asked who Feng thought he was to challenge two opponents at once. Li Lin chimed in, saying Feng couldn't handle both of them, especially since Yu Hao could defeat him with a single strike. Smirking, Yu Hao said it wasn't even worth drawing his sword to fight trash like Feng, so Li Lin could handle it. He gave Li Lin 3 breaths of time to attack. If he didn't, he would paralyze him first. Lin Feng dismissed their words as ridiculous. He pointed out that Li Lin had confronted Shinshin in the pavilion and, out of cowardice, directed his anger toward him. Now, Li Lin was afraid of someone he called trash, and Yu Hao, a self-proclaimed genius who attacked without reason, had boasted he could kill Feng at any time. Well, here I am, standing before you. So, where is your sword? Feng finished. Enraged, Li Lin charged at him, shouting that he would paralyze Feng's cultivation. But with just one strike, Feng defeated him like a worm. Li Lin fell off the stage, discarded like a sack of trash. Turning to Yu Hao, Lin Feng asked if he wasn't planning to kill him. Why was he just standing there? Yu Hao replied that, while he had said so, he couldn't kill Feng during the internal examination, even in the arena of life and death. Because of that, he would paralyze Feng's cultivation and break all his limbs, making him wish he were dead. Then, Yu Hao unleashed his martial spirit, surrounding himself with its energy. The audience gasped at the display of his power, and warned Feng to be cautious. But the young hero declared that since Yu Hao loved swords so much, he would let him see what a real swordsman looked like. Yu Hao sneered, asking how Feng could talk about swordsmanship without possessing a sword-type spirit. With a slight smile, Feng questioned whether wielding a sword required a sword-type spirit. Drawing his sword, Feng continued, saying that, beyond that, Yu Hao didn't truly understand swords. Simply having a sword-type spirit didn't make someone a swordsman. Then, he unleashed an immense power onto the stage. Everyone watching was astounded by Lin Feng's immense power. The patriarch quickly realized who had rung the bells and recognized that Lin Feng would be one of the sect's pillars, deciding he needed proper training. Amos Xie, on the other hand, wanted to kill him while he was still young to prevent future problems. Han Man laughed loudly, amazed at the power Lin Feng had been hiding. Pejun wasn't surprised that Lin Feng could so easily release such a strong killing intent. Yu Hao was frozen with fear, wondering how that trash had become such a powerful swordsman, realizing he wouldn't last a single round against him. In desperation, Yu Hao surrendered, offering his position as an inner disciple. Lin Feng asked if he needed anything from him. Panicking, Yu Hao exclaimed that he had already surrendered and asked what more Lin Feng wanted. Lin Feng said he would return everything Yu Hao had given him. Yu Hao wondered if Lin Feng truly intended to kill him, shouting that this was the inner exam and asking how he could do such a thing. Lin Feng replied that he could do whatever he wanted, then lunged at the young man, attacking him with his sword in the blink of an eye, hitting him directly. The entire audience was stunned by what they saw. Amos Xie shouted, asking how Lin Feng dared to do such a thing. He declared that by killing a disciple in front of everyone, Lin Feng had disrespected the sect, and death alone wouldn't suffice, ordering everyone to capture him. He added that if Lin Feng resisted, they should kill him. Han Man shouted from the crowd, pointing out that Yu Hao had tried to paralyze Lin Feng and asking if it was wrong for Lin Feng to kill him. Lu Fei admired the protagonist's courage. Everyone then charged at Lin Feng under the elder's orders, but the patriarch shouted for them to stop. Everyone obeyed the patriarch's order and halted. Amos Xie said the disciple was arrogant and proud, disregarding the patriarch, and should be made an example of and punished. Another elder agreed, saying the disciple deserved death for his actions. The patriarch asked if they were done speaking. He then turned to Amos Xie and asked who among them was the patriarch. Bowing, the old man replied that he was the patriarch. Turning to the others, he asked who among them was the patriarch. They all bowed and acknowledged that he was the patriarch. The patriarch then told Amos Xie that while he accused the disciple of disrespecting him, it was Amos Xie who had publicly ignored the patriarch while pointing fingers. Breaking the chair he was sitting on, the patriarch asked if the elder was disrespecting him, the patriarch. Quickly, the elder admitted his mistake. The patriarch declared that since Amos Xie recognized his error, he would let it pass. He also stated that regarding the external disciple, it was Yu Hao who provoked and threatened him, so Lin Feng's actions were justified. Amos Xie tried to question the patriarch's decision, but with a single sharp glance, The patriarch silenced him, and Mosia conceded that it was a wise decision. The patriarch asked Lin Feng his name. Lin Feng replied that his name was Lin Feng. The patriarch then announced that from that moment forward, Lin Feng was an inner disciple of the Yunhai sect. Everyone present was astonished, as the young man had captured the patriarch's attention and been granted a position within the inner sect. None of them had received such a privilege. They all received their designations silently. Lin Feng reflected on how much attention he had drawn, which might give Mosia more reason to target him. He also pondered the patriarch's opinion of him. He recalled an incident where the patriarch silently observed as the elder handed him over to Lin Qian. It made sense, as he had only been an external disciple then. Lin Feng reasoned that Nangong must have heard about him from Bei and Kong Lao, which explained why Mosia had been so humiliated. He also concluded that Nangong must have been aware of the incident with the demonic beast, making it impossible for the matter to be resolved so easily. He resolved that to move forward, he might have to make the Yunhai sect his enemy. The patriarch silently observed Lin Feng, noting his firm gaze and how difficult it would be for someone so promising not to become powerful. A stranger remarked that he would remember Lin Feng's arrogance, while another mocked that no one even knew who he was. Lin Feng returned to his friends, who all praised him for becoming so strong. He asked Han Man when it would be his turn. The big guy looked at the arena, felt inspired, and declared that his fists were itching, then rushed toward the arena. Everyone was surprised to see him heading there. Standing in the arena, Han Man declared that he didn't know many inner disciples, so any soul layer disciple who wanted to fight him should come forward, he shouted boldly. Even Lin Feng was astonished by what he witnessed. A man then stepped forward. He approached the arena to face Han Man. Han Man introduced himself to the man. The man replied that his name was Wang Han. The big man said he liked straightforward people and invited him to begin the fight. The two prepared to face each other. The patriarch was impressed by Han Man's immense strength. He was pleased, thinking that while the sect had stagnated for years, it now finally had two decent disciples. Now let's take a brief lesson about the Snow Moon Kingdom, which has countless sects and clans, though few hold considerable power. Without a doubt, the imperial city of Snow Moon possesses the greatest strength among them, and in that vast kingdom, no one would dare challenge them. Besides the royal family, other powerful entities reside in the imperial city, such as the Yunhai sect, the Haoyu sect, the Luoxia sect, and the Frozen Snow Mountain Village. There are 8 great officers across Snow Moon. Moreover, they are all young individuals of great power and talent. All of them are incredibly powerful, yet none belong to the Yunhai sect. The patriarch understood that having a high-level cultivator might not mean much now, but who knows what could happen in a few years. The Yunhai sect has shown signs of decline, as it lacks many talented cultivators or anyone capable of leading the sect. If this continues, it won't be long before the sect collapses. For now, the sect seems safe, but the future is uncertain. The imperial city is establishing the Snowy Moon Sacred Academy, which is not a good sign, and the patriarch hopes there is still time for these two disciples to grow. Meanwhile, the battle between Han Man and Wang Han was coming to an end. Wang surrendered, saying he was no match for Han Man and congratulating him on becoming an inner disciple. Han Man smiled and said he had only taken advantage of his spirit. The man smiled back, pleased that he had lost to someone worthy. Returning to his friends, Han Man said he hadn't embarrassed himself, and Lin Feng praised him. Lin Feng knew that Han Man's strength made him unrivaled in power struggles unless he faced someone exceptionally talented. He told his friend that he would stay to watch the upcoming fights, as he might learn something new. Han Man said he would stay as well. The battles that followed had nothing to do with Lin Feng. Still, he watched them all, and he learned from them. Eventually, he unlocked the third soul coating. Han Man told him that his target should be Tu Fu, as Tu Fu was extremely powerful and had defeated a core disciple with a single punch. Those who challenged Tu Fu were usually defeated. Furthermore, even the weakest of the core disciples mastered the fourth soul coating. The sect had adopted this ranking system a year ago. Only as a core disciple would he receive adequate training. The first soul coating was considered basic for inner disciples. Achieving the third made one stronger than most. Once the fourth soul coating was mastered, challenging a core disciple and joining their program became possible. But my goal is more than just being an inner or core disciple, because even a single elder of the inner sect could incapacitate me, Lin Feng thought. He then asked what they needed to do after receiving their robes and symbols, and Han Man said there was nothing else required. At that moment, Lu Fei approached and called out to the protagonist. He quickly turned around. Blushing slightly, she asked if they could talk privately. Both Han Man and their friend were stunned. Lin Feng wondered what she had to say, as even though she had helped him, that didn't mean they were close enough for a private conversation. Han Man, quickly dragging the other friend away, said they had something to do and left. Lin Feng cursed him in his mind. Grinning, the big man walked off. The protagonist told Lu Fei they should start walking. Reaching a more secluded spot, She asked if he remembered the first time they met. He replied that he did, as he had almost been killed by her arrows. Slightly annoyed and embarrassed, she said that if he hadn't been spying, she wouldn't have shot at him. He asked when exactly he had spied on her. At that moment, he couldn't help but notice Lu's face curves. She quickly asked where he was looking. Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.